We're going to go ahead and start this meeting for Planning Commission for our workshop, and we'll go ahead and get started, focusing on the comprehensive plan. And I'll turn this over to Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to begin today's workshop and just level setting and letting everyone know where we are in this process of our comprehensive plan update, and then kind of give sort of the flow of today's workshop and how we move forward. And then, of course, there'll be an opportunity for public comments to weigh in as part of today's process as well. We started this process of updating our comp plan over a year ago, and today of where we are, there was a subcommittee of the Planning Commission established to kind of help advance this document. That subcommittee, Dr. Curran, Ms. Hennessy, Mr. Iwan, those three worked alongside staff to modify this document and shape it in what I would call an advanced stage to more of a ready state for public consumption. We aren't what I would call exclusively there yet for public consumption. And so this today is the first time that our full Planning Commission has had a chance to have a discussion around this document as a full group. So what we'll do today is look at specifically the goals and objectives of each of the established elements. There are a few what I would call big picture theme items that staff has identified that we should have some additional discussion around to gain some comfortability from the Commission. And our goal, I think, is to just get really comfortable with where we are, and that sets us up for being able to really put this in a stage for allowing the public to really get their eyes and provide direct feedback to you guys before a recommendation. This document is online, and we've shared this with the commissioners ahead of today's workshop. They've also provided some comments. What we have done is take those comments and provided that in a clean document. So that document, some of those, not all of them, a great deal of those are in that the binded copy that you see here. And so thank you for sending those comments as quickly as you could, but not all of them were able to get instant for today. But we will, like I said, have an opportunity for everyone to weigh in on the document. But I do want to again thank the work group, Mr. Iwan, Ms. Hennessy, who will be late today. She stated she'll be here, and Dr. Curran, who did a lot of heavy lifting on behalf of the Commission of trying to get us to this stage today. Any sort of general opening kind of comments before you guys want to dive in?
So this one has been updated with the comments you got back.
So some comments.
Yeah, so I have received comments, and the reason why I said some is a lot of them I've been able to incorporate in here. Some of these were questions, some were statements. So that's why I said some of them, and there's some I just wasn't quite sure what was being asked. So I think I tried to capture a good majority of them, but there's some that I think they were just kind of statements or comments and not really changes. So
we'll if there aren't any other, we'll just go in section by section, and then what I'll do is just kind of just present each element. And if there's if you have a general concern about how that element is faced, then we can interject at that moment. But really, I think the goal or takeaway here is to look at each element and find some general comfortability with the goals and objectives for each of those elements. So we'll start.
John, before you do, let me, if you don't object, let me make some general comments specifically about the draft we're looking at as opposed to the new draft we just got. Overall, I think the document as drafted is very informative. And in many respects, though, I find that the linkage between the narrative, which is again very complete and informative, is simply, and the linkage between that and the goals in most sections is missing, where the goals simply are repeated of what has already been accomplished, which is already in the narrative. So finding it a little difficult to understand the real strategic thinking that's gone into for the 10-year period as presented, but I do have a specific comment when we get to the section dealing with the governance area, where we added the specific goal, creation of a KIA, and get into that specifically.
So what I would recommend that,
I would just sort of say, this got labeled final draft, and I don't think it's quite a final draft.
right,
So, I mean, there's still typos and places where, a sentence isn't finished and things like that. So, I agree, let's talk about big pictures and, but like I said, this still needs some work as far as to be a finished product.
so let's just start with Mr. Capelli left off in the first element, which is that governance structure. And I think for staff, we know that this idea or concept of the Kiawah Island Alliance that was birthed as a new section for our comprehensive plan. This has evolved. We've had, I think, a number of conversations back and forth of what does it look like, how is it structured, how is it implemented. And so I do want to just save some space for today to at least get us to understand your thoughts as we recommend this to town council. What should this Kiawah Island Alliance framework look and feel like? And I don't know if you want to jump off, Mr. Capelli, since you started there.
John, when you're going through this, would you just reference for all of this, what page you're referencing?
I'm on right now page 28 and 29, where it is the actual goals and objectives that's listed.
Okay.
This is sort of the narrative that's highlighted as part of the Kiawah Island Alliance. And just for those listening, I'll read just the opening part of that, which says, to enhance strategic collaboration and cross-jurisdictional dialogue in support of the 2025 Comprehensive Plan, the town of Kiawah Island will establish the Kiawah Island Alliance. This group, convened quarterly by the mayor, will bring together key stakeholders and decision makers from across Kiawah Island, major organizations and interests. And this will serve as a high-level forum to accomplish several things, and those things are facilitating strategic discussions about Kiawah's future, identifying opportunities for policy alignment and collaboration, addressing emergency issues that impact multiple stakeholders, and promoting open dialogue and understanding among the diverse entities here on Kiawah. And that composition has listed all of the Ks that everyone's familiar with: the town, the community association, the partners, the Gulf Resort, the Conservancy, county and state agencies as needed. And then also Freshfields or Edens has been listed as part of that group as well. So that's kind of the framework, is just identifying those key stakeholders. And the question I have to you guys is, what's missing? What's not enough? What are your thoughts? Is it functioning? How do you guys want to make that recommendation around it?
I'll, again, start where I left off. The overall discussion talks about cooperative discussion, cooperative thinking, the need for cooperation between the different entities because of the unique structure of the town. It ends up saying the town is going to control everything. They're going to set the meetings, they're going to look for a year, at least in the goals, they're going to look for an agenda for a year, and they will take charge of everything. Now, I'm going to suggest...
Hold on a second, Eddie, may I ask,
Wait a minute, would you let me finish, then you can ask your questions. I'm telling you what it says now.
No, you're telling me what you think it says now.
No, I'm talking about the narrative, not talking about the...
You used the word
Steps.
control. I used the word organize. The town will organize this, not control it.
It says it. The town will set clear, focused agendas for each meeting.
Isn't
That's
that organizing?
controlling it.
Isn't that organizing?
That's controlling it.
Okay, you think it's controlling, I think it's organizing.
Well, yeah,
Finish your thought.
thank you. I don't think, given the experience we've had with the comprehensive plan management program, that anybody in any position in these different entities will believe that this is an area where they can get their voice heard, and the town can work cooperatively to get things done across the different entities. Because what it says, and if you looked at the way the Comprehensive Plan Management Committee was set up, and what the town agreed to as a town council, was that they would have representatives come in from each organization, sort of a start to this thought of the KIA, and that they end up making a submission to their entity, whoever was affected by that entity would get a submission for them to act on. If it was a joint submission, because there's different entities involved, but depending on who owned the property or who had the responsibility for that area, they would solve it. But they would solve it in a way they received input from all of the constituents as the best way to continue and go forward and correct whatever or change whatever was required. And in fact, there was no discussion about specifics, about funding or anything else, but they would come together to make a recommendation that was joint on the part of the group, which supposedly was going to have the benefit, if you will, of each of the organizations and the support of each of the organizations to follow that process and recommendation. The first recommendation that came forward was essentially dismissed out of hand, and the town took it over. The Kiawah Bridge. Conservancy objected to something when their representative had agreed to it. The recommendation came forward, it never got off the table, and now the town has assumed responsibility for it through the environmental committee. So what I'm saying is, you may not be familiar with it, but what I'm saying is, based on that experience, what was contemplated didn't happen. What's contemplated here won't happen because the town is going to control it. They're going to take over that responsibility. Not only are they going to take over, there's no indication that they're going to get input from these groups other than at these quarterly meetings. And there's not a consensus input, it's just whatever input they get from the person who sits in at the meeting. What I'm suggesting, and I'll pass out an alternative, is an organization that really has the interest of the island in mind and the community input in mind, and the resolution that comes out of it is a recommendation that will be inputted to each of the groups and agreed to before it goes, if you will, into action, or before it's effective. And what they would get is you'll have a recommendation that KIA or KICA or whoever is involved will do something that all the entities agree to, and how they do it would be agreed among the members. When they do it, if the funding is required, that will go to whoever is going to pay for it and how it's going to be funded. But basically, this group will be the decision maker on projects that require inter-agency or inter-entity cooperation. And nothing's going to be forced. It's going to be a agreement that arises out of this group's discussions, and the agreement, in order for it to be effective, will involve the rights and the desires, if you will, of the group most affected, because they have the right to operate whatever it is they need to do on the property that they own. So, from that, I think that would be at least an opportunity to get this idea that we all agreed to at the beginning, by the way, in a form that becomes effective and not a form that's going to just put out a lot of words on paper and fall on its face.
This is discussion. Anybody else want to?
You know, I think it's presenting an idea. It's not presenting the structure of the organization. So, I mean, I think that was the intention of this. And, you know, I don't think anywhere in here it says the town is going to control this organization. It gives the town only the discretion that it's, you know, going to facilitate the organization. So that was the intention of the verbiage, but there's nowhere in here that it says the town is going to control this. And it even specifically says at the bottom of the first column that this organization is going to be advisory, it's going to make recommendations, but it's not going to be forcing anything on any one of the stakeholders. It's going to be a recommendation to the stakeholder that this is, you know, this is what this group feels is important. But there's nowhere in here that it says the town is, or that anything is going to force a stakeholder into an action. It's an advisory committee with the only thing the town doing is trying to facilitate the organization.
We don't want the town to force anything.
We're not forcing,
Right,
we're
not asking.
facilitating.
We're not, no, we're not. If you look to the goal and the steps, it says nothing about facilitating any decision or any implementation.
So,
I think with any goal, the intent is to accomplish a decided upon initiative. And so if you're looking at, is something on paper going to be 100% successful? No. These are goals and objectives, and some of them have not been tried. Some of them may not work at all, but others, I think once you get involved and people start playing their role, there will be good ideas and intentions coming out of this. And as far as the town being responsible, to quote you, well, at the end, the town is responsible for the comprehensive plan because it's state law that says we have to take the 10 objectives and put goals and objectives to them, or the 10 initiatives. So I don't mind using the word town being responsible because ultimately they will be. It's going to be like a team. If you look at all this group on the left-hand side of the page and you say this is a team, you're going to have someone driving that team. And I had no problem with a representative from the town, whether it's Stephanie, John, or whoever that is driving that initiative.
My focus was not on the left side.
Sure.
The focus was on the way the so-called goal and objective and the steps that you would take to achieve the objective would be accomplished.
so your question,
So I've rewritten it. John, you can have a copy, everybody else does. And you can take a look at it while we get other comments. But the fact is, John, if you would pass that to John.
I can't
The,
get my hand in mine.
The way,
Oh, sorry.
Chief, okay. The way this comes out is, if you look at the draft, is that the group together makes the decision. The town, you call it, implement it, or if it's their function, to implement it on their property, or if it's a joint function, they and whoever else is involved would agree to it. The agreement would be among all the parties that this is right, it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and the full recognition of property rights.
I mean, I don't.
That's
so
the goal.
If you're looking at this objective MP4 and strategy MP 4.1, I don't see anything that's written there that you have jumped to, that the town is controlling this. I mean,
Forget it, John. That's not the point. The
It's
point
my,
is,
Ron.
Ron, I'm sorry.
See,
The point
here I
is,
am.
the point is that the fact that you're saying it doesn't control it is not a comment I'm making. I'm making the comment in the goal that the rewritten goal would support what everything in here says is needed because of the unique structure of the town and the different responsibilities and interests of the players on these, in these
Well, I
entities.
think some of the things you've written there are fine. I mean, I'm not against what you've written.
Yeah.
And I think, instead of, I think what we need to do is incorporate some of what you've written into this objective 4.
Well, that's
But I don't see anything in objective 4 that says the town is going to control KIA.
It doesn't make any
Well,
difference,
that's what your initial comment was.
because the language in the narratives assumed that.
Where's that?
The town will
The town
set
will-
clear, focused agendas, and then when you get further involved into the document, they're talking about setting up with a different name, they change it to a group that would implement, what do they call it?
When we discussed this, and we, again, didn't want to, make it so much that it was a town-run organization, but, it's really for all the stakeholders to participate, and, this wasn't the structure of the organization. It was merely an idea.
What I'll share is I think, I want to just pull back a bit and make it, come back to the reason why the alliance was kind of proposed is that we have this unique community where there's all of these stakeholders involved in the decision-making process. In order to accomplish that, what was missing and what we heard was that there wasn't a formal venue for these entities to get together regularly and plan for the future of Kiawah. It happens organically today, and I think on good merit, it happens on project or initiative by things that happen on good merit. But the intent here was to say, let's formalize that. We don't have to put the exact details of what time this group is meeting and who says what, but let's just put the framework of, hey, there will be alliance. And once that alliance is established, they can figure out those types of details. So I think
And that's
that's
all I'm suggesting we
Yeah.
include in the steps in the goal.
okay. Well, what we'll do is try to modify some of this of what you had here and incorporate it.
But we can take out the part where he's talking about capital
Yeah, I
budget
don't-
projects.
yeah.
I don't think, we're not in setting capital budget projects.
I'm sorry,
It says, I don't like, you want to take out capital? Take out capital.
Because this is already
It's broader.
broad enough. I think this narrows it too tightly in my mind.
Okay.
I just want to make a comment if I could. This reminds me very much in a more formal way, and I think it's a great idea. Years ago, the community association would set up a meeting once a year and try and bring in these different entities. And it was the town, it was the community association, the partners, it was the golf resort. And it was well-intentioned, and the agenda was not set by Kika. Each entity was asked to come in and talk about something that was important to them. The problem was, it was a one-day event. It was just sort of trying to get people together, but it was not something that was done consistently throughout the year. And this, to me, formalizes that process, and I think there's a lot of merit to it. And I have to say, I didn't read anything into this that said the town was going to be sort of leading and pushing it down people's throats. It was, they were going to be the coordinator, try and get these people together. Obviously, if you're setting an agenda, you reach out to the other members to find out what they would like to be talking about. So I personally don't, there may be some wordsmithing to make
and if
some
there's
of these
any,
changes, but I think in general, it's a great concept.
and if there's anything you guys want to do in terms of wordsmithing, just let me know. But also, on page 28, the very last kind of paragraph in the second column, it says, while the KIA is the proposed approach for enhancing strategic collaboration, the town remains open to refining this concept based on community feedback and practical experience.
I have a couple quick things. So, I don't know, you said, should there be anything else added to the list? I guess, should MUSC be added to the list? Since they are.
So,
We have others
Dr.
on.
Curran, what I did was I just put others,
Yeah.
and others could include the regimes, because they now have established, it can include MUSC, it can include any other partners that we feel may be appropriate. It could include, as an example, John's Island Task Force could be the other, so I just put others on there.
Depending on the issue.
Exactly.
Yeah, depending on the issue.
And then the other, how does this, there's a, later in the document, talking about marsh management and the marsh management plan and committee. And then in there, in the marsh management discussion, there's a, referred to that, there has to be, again, sort of a cooperative entity, and it's got more initials than KIA. It's like KIEEC, or how does, now that we're talking about this, how does that other,
So that's just a microcosm of this.
well, would that be a subcommittee of KIA potentially?
No, that's a specific goal or implementation plan itself, like that's a specific thing. So, I mean, this group in itself could say, maybe we all need to revise how that group is working in
Well, like I said, it's just now that, it's fine, but now that you have this, it kind of immediately you go, how does that one interact? How do we have two of these now?
We don't know that. That's what
So
they
to my,
have to do. That's the
one-
step.
one other thing
They have
to
to
that,
come up
Dr.
with-
Curran, is that I saw this one being more of the elected,
Sure.
appointed officials and head leadership of the organizations, more of a, and that's more.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Well, I just, again, I think for somebody reading this, they're gonna get overwhelmed with the KI.
I'll tell you, this isn't going to happen overnight. My guess is this will take a good part to operate effectively in all cases. It's going to take, the first objective is to obtain the commitment of the heads of all the groups. That's going to take
And that's why.
more than a day.
And that's why, when we started this a long time ago, KIA was a lot more, and it's been worked backwards, because we're not sure how that cooperation's gonna occur. So because we're not, because this is an idea, and we're not sure how willing the participants are going to be, we downplayed it. So this is a lot less than what KIA was.
Yeah, I understand that. And that's why I suggested that I didn't see, frankly, I didn't see any strategic thinking going into the objectives as they're written,
Thanks.
because we downplayed it. What's the sense of giving it up because we think it's not going to work?
We didn't
The
give
fact
up.
is, for 10 years, for 10 years, somehow this project has got to work. That's the future of the island. If we don't get along on this island for 10 years, the quality of living is going to go to hell. It already has, in some respects. We're fighting amongst ourselves. We're finding issues being basically forced down by either litigation or something else, being forced on people or forced on groups when they don't want it. And really without understanding why it is that they're being not given an opportunity to comment. And there's a lot of things going on that people have, maybe it's not just them, it's the way it's being presented or the lack of their interest in it, but there's a lot of things going on that people don't care about. And this is one way of getting everybody focused through their organizations.
I mean, you guys as the stewards of this document and those who are elected officials, that's their responsibility, just to make sure that we stay on. I just want to identify, there's two more on the next page, just to keep us moving along.
Yep.
On the governance section.
We're on a 5-hour clip, by the way.
No, we are.
I was like,
But if there's no other big takeaways from the governance section, I mean, I know the alliance was going to be something that we had some good general discussion around, and I think we've kind of gotten sort of a closing point on that. So I think you'll take what we heard today, make some amendments to that, and recirculate that. Any others on this opening section?
It's a big picture in a way, but the picture on page 31 is not anything to do with governance.
Hold on to all of the pictures. I will make that all of the pictures, that's like a closing. We'll get the right associated.
Yeah, so in regards to the photos, I did not focus on any of the photos. That's just, I will go ahead and drop them in once we kind of get everything done. I can go in and drop photos in, but I was not
Okay.
focused on that. I was just focused on writing right now.
Section 2 is our population element. And Ms. Hennessy, what we're doing is just going element by element and taking out any big things, not necessarily going through each red line of the document itself. Any comments that you guys have regarding the population element that requires a little bit of dialogue or discussion?
And again, we're going back to the goals and objectives.
Goals and objectives. So the priority is really essentially making sure that we are relevant in our sort of transient population data as a community of full-time, part-time visitors, understanding all of that trend. That's where the focus was for this particular section, making sure that through the next 10 years that we provide the resources to ensure that we understand and provide the right resources to obtain that specific level of data.
You don't want to hear about typos, do you?
No.
Good.
If there are,
There was, so I want to point out, I'm not sure, I was trying to read your comments. On page 34,
34, looking backwards.
you see anything in red, like I've added that section? Please review it, and the reason why I've added, because it was a comment that may
This is
have come through.
Most
the
recent.
most recent.
Yes, in the coil one.
Can we,
And like 35, because either I've gotten a comment in
was me.
regards to, yeah.
That's mine, yes.
So I've added that in, so if you guys don't have to do it now, but if you have, or if you want, if you review it and you have questions or want modifications, you can let me know. But like 34, 35, it was highlighted red because it was a comment that came through. And on page 39, it's highlighted red because it was a comment that came through.
Just a comment on 34, I mean, there's a whole section on transportation. I mean, I don't disagree with what's written by any means, but we kind of hit it pretty hard back in whatever
In the transportation section.
Transportation.
transportation section.
Yeah, then there, we were talking about development sustainability in the sentence before, so I was like, we're talking about other subjects, we should also bring up transportation since it is kind of a function of, related to population.
I know you took out retirement.
Too young.
I know, I get that, but we're also more than golf and tennis.
I know, I was just throwing out ideas.
Yeah.
I want it to be something besides a retirement destination. And we refer to it a couple different ways throughout the document.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can-
And on 35, we added, someone wanted to add luxury golf and tennis destination, so that was added. And then again, on 39, added a bullet about conduct survey of property. And so one of the things I put that in red, because it was asked, but the only reason I put it says conduct survey of property buyer, sellers to understand demographics and reasons to buy, sell, kill. We have to remember, I'm not sure if that's a town function or more of a KIRE function that we can pull from. If we want to keep that on there, that is fine, but that was highlighted, that was asked to be put in there, so I put that in.
I had it, and we've talked about
Yeah.
this, I had a concern on privacy there because I wouldn't necessarily want to tell my real estate agent everything about me. I think it would be, I appreciate the desire to understand that, but I think a lot of us have privacy concerns and aren't going to share that information.
Yeah, and I was,
Does it matter whether I'm 50, 60, 70 when I buy? It's nobody's business.
yeah, and I was thinking this more from the town rather than from the real estate agency. It's public record in terms of who's buying, who's selling in town. A short welcome letter or departure letter saying, okay, welcome to Kiawah, sign up for this, this, and this, and while we're here, let us know a little bit about why you're buying or why you're selling.
And do you notice how many, and we have this issue, as Sherry knows on Kika, that a lot of houses are bought in trusts and LLCs, and you don't know.
I heard about that, yeah.
We can keep that on there because we would have to work, the town, we don't give that information.
Okay.
We would have to work with Kika, probably on KRE, and because they're private entities, sometimes
County,
they're. Yeah, we can pull that information, but we don't know, we would have to, the way that we would do it is that through the county, we would pull up parcel data, and then we would have to compare, but we won't even know what transferred, we would just know new development, or new, probably, homes that have gone to the parcel data. But I guess we could see, because when the parcel data comes, if the name is different, we would know that it's sold,
Right.
but we would just have to do that.
Details, yeah.
We can, that's the only question, I wasn't sure if we want to leave
Yeah,
it
the
on.
question I would ask is the purpose in wanting to obtain that. I mean, is it just a directive?
To send out what he's.
To get in front of the demographics that are shifting within the town, to understand where people are coming from, why they're selling, why they're buying, other areas they may have looked at, what amenities are important to them.
Yeah, one of the things for me was, I'd be more interested in the people that looked and didn't buy.
Yeah, that's a tough
Where
one,
did
yeah.
they go? Why didn't
Yeah.
they buy?
Yeah.
And is that a town function, or is that more of
That's
a
real estate.
Kika or KRE?
I thought that more of a real estate.
Right. So are we wanting to leave it in or take it out? Jean, do you have, you want to put this in, do you have a strong?
I thought it'd be great to get more demographics about people, why people are moving into or out of Kiawah, more timely demographics. I'm open to others' opinions, honestly.
But it may be tough for the town to get that information.
I think from the standpoint of knowing the future needs real estate-wise, the survey that they generally do, and I guess town's part of it, is to understand what the views of the current residents are with respect to staying on the island, moving off the island, how long and when, would give them an understanding of what the needs are gonna be, and they can plan for that. I'm not sure that, this may help the real estate people, I'm not sure we need it in the comprehensive plan.
The consensus I'm hearing is to delete.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Deputy, one quick question. Is that, yeah, under,
Sorry, say
one
that
quick
again.
question on page 36 is that we note that it's a 2.1% increase in full-time residents, but that part-time residents have a significant impact, but we have no data on that at all? How many, so we don't know how many part-time residents?
I can try to get that, I don't even know from Kika, I'll have to look and see, because I did reach out to them about that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was, I think,
I don't remember.
what I recall is difficult for them to qualify.
Well, it's everybody else above the 2.5%. It's everything else.
Yeah.
That's all.
For some reason,
We may not be able to kind of quantify that information to specifics, but I can look and see, I can continue to look to see if we can
Yeah, my
get
only
some ballpark.
My only point being is that we make a big point on the fact that part-time residents are a very important part of, a larger part, and we say we don't know what they are. We don't know what kind of growth's going on.
Well, the one way that we kind of, I think, figure out is that, say, if Kika gives us a number, which they have, we know from our voter register, because we go based on full-time, essentially those that are registered to vote. So if our number is at, I think we said 2,100, but then they're saying that, 8,000 or 9,000 is what they have, then I guess we could say, okay, they are,
You can estimate it then.
yeah, they're non-registered voters.
How about this?
They could still be full-time, but just not registered to vote.
You may, and this was information released to the whole island, or all of the Kiawah Island Club members at the session the other, couple of weeks ago. It's very detailed, and you want to get a hold of Dan Whelan and get that information. I'd even use it. It's updated through August, and there's a lot of information in there, not only about what the trends are, but what's here now, and in fact, what's available. At one point, we talked about the build-out, and how many buildings could be, in terms of the density discussions, how many buildings would be added, how many future lots are going to be available.
So,
One is different than the other, but
Okay.
I get that information.
well, that wasn't,
Use that.
that wasn't population, that was units.
Yeah.
So, if we have that already in here, so you figure that you have 1,000 or 1,100 full-time residents, and you have 4,000 some dwelling units. So, I mean, you can
make a
imply
reasonable, yeah,
there's a lot
exactly.
of.
Sure.
Exactly.
And we,
part-time
But
residents in
and we
we had
do-
a discussion about if we wouldn't qualify, we pulled it out, not being qualified, because during our work session,
Yeah.
I get it,
I want to add that on page 37, I did get this, I think maybe from, let me see if I got the speaker. We did have approximately, we just said approximately 7,000. That's where the number from. We have it at the bottom of that.
Oh, okay.
Now, they may not admit it, but don't forget the South Carolina laws for permanent
For tax purposes.
registered voters. If you're here and intend to come back, you can basically claim South Carolina as your state of residency.
Your domicile.
You can vote, and you can, as long as you get your car registered,
And you
can
pay
vote,
taxes.
and it's nothing like 180 days or whatever else. And in fact, once you're here, almost everybody from a tax standpoint likes to claim residency one way or the other. And it may not be anybody more than 120 days. It could be anything, as long as they're willing to come back and say, this is my home. And they become a resident, and they can vote. So
Yeah, but on the register rolls for us right now, we only have, we're under 2,000.
Yeah.
But the point being is that we don't have to figure out how we're going to get it.
Yeah.
All we got to figure out is, do we want it? Is it important enough to have something in there?
Right.
And we
And
did-
I have that number on.
just jump on to the next element, which is economic development.
John,
And
is the blue, the top blue, is that straight from South Carolina statute on economic development considered labor force?
Yes.
So that we have to, because it just seemed odd to have to be the first thing given.
So the information I put on each blue comes straight from the statute
Okay,
definition. I didn't edit it or anything, I just.
Thank you.
any takeaways that you guys have for economic development?
Where the bills?
48. yes.
48.
I would just show that on page 43, I just find it made sense, I was asked to strike that.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then also on page 45, you can see where I was asked to strike, so I did that.
Right.
And on 48, I haven't had a chance, but I was asked to add a comment to monitor impacts of cost of tourism and rentals, and provide examples of what economic indicators would be to monitor. So that was some additional comments that I have not. If there's anything or questions on that, I did not get a chance to do that, but I think I covered everything.
And the comment about the cost of tourism rentals, we talked a lot about the revenue associated with tourism, but there's also the other side of the equation that we have to watch too.
I think that we get your questions, infrastructure, we should add a comment that there is also economic cost of tourism and that it puts a strain on the sell rates. So you've asked to add that in. Did I put a comment on that? Be able to add that in there? You had asked, I'm just going over his comments, he said, under infrastructure development on page 45, I wasn't sure, I wasn't sure, under infrastructure development on bullet 4, you put, we should add a comment that there is also an economic cost of tourism.
Well, yeah, we have that in the goals now.
Okay, so you're okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. And then on 45, the fifth bullet, I took care of that, so we don't have to worry about that. And then on 46, I wasn't sure on that, under tourism impact, you asked about the occupancy rate seemed very high. Does data include short-term VRs, I guess, STVRs with year-round availability?
Yeah, I was just curious what the source was for the occupancy rates and the ADRs.
CVB, Charleston Visitors Bureau.
Oh, okay.
I thought I put that on there, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I maybe need to put, oh, yeah, I did, on page 47.
Yeah.
I did that. And then you had 46, Charleston International Airport. Yes, I can add that. Yes, about adding the parking lot, I can include that. 47, oh, on 47, you asked if we should include, as the last part, last paragraph, should we add something? This is for the whole group, I did not add anything yet. You wanted to, the discussion is, should we add something about the impact of Kiawah River development, hotels and homes, and its potential impact on Kiawah? Should we add a point about managing STBR licenses as part of the challenge and managing travel trends?
Right.
Would you like to?
Sure, so on Kiawah River development, that's a challenge, right, to Kiawah potentially. I didn't know if we want to put something in the comprehensive plan about monitoring that and how it might impact what's going on out here on Kiawah Island. And then the last point was just monitoring short-term business licenses, the impact that has on economic development here, and whether further action should be taken to increase a cap, decrease a cap, modify it in any way.
So to the first point of Kiawah River specifically, we do have language that looks more broadly just in the town paying attention to what's happening beyond.
Okay.
And frankly, so I think
That's
kind
my
of
point,
full.
because you could have like Orange Hill, would
Right.
be that,
Okay.
where do you
That's
stop
fine.
it? Where do you draw the line then?
That's fine.
That's the one I was thinking of. yeah.
So we're good on that?
We're good on that.
Nothing there? Okay, at 48, under goal, ED1. Okay, I already talked about the indicators and that. Okay, I think I got your comments. You were the suggestions with
Yes.
regards to add a comment to monitor impact and cost of tourism rentals. Anyone object to adding something about that? And then just kind of specific on examples of the.
Which indicators we're going to monitor, yeah.
Any concern, I can add some things on that, any discussion, because it's really okay if I add something. Okay,
I mean, I guess the question is, are you going to add it under ED1? As a bullet point under ED1?
yeah, for the indicators, it would go under
ED 1.1.
And then I guess in regards to the comment about impacts, cost of tourism and rentals,
I think that would be under ED 3.1.
yeah, I was looking at that, under balanced economic development, living with, well, that's living with nature. BD, that one.
Oh, maybe, I'm sorry, ED 2.
It would be,
So
it probably would also go under ED1, safeguard Kiawah's economic vitality across changing conditions.
It's somewhat duplicative of the first bullet under ED1.
Or it would be a separate objective.
Yeah.
What is it again? What's the,
The thing is to add something, a comment about monitoring the impact and cost of tourism and short-term rentals.
I thought that was going to go under ED 1.1.
That's why I was saying that could go under,
I
but
think it
the,
naturally can fold under ED1 where we're already regularly assess and report on key economic metrics that anticipate changing conditions. I mean, short-term rentals is a changing condition. I mean, that's how I see it. If you want to specifically call out rentals as in that brings more of a highlight to it, we can do something of that nature.
We could list as one of the indicators, yeah.
Makes sense.
okay, I'll add that as one of the indicators.
Yeah, I don't think you need to specify it. It says key indicators, you've decided which ones they are. The goal or the strategy doesn't have to identify them. But you want to be more specific,
Either way it works.
make it a complete list then.
Thank you.
So next section was natural resources. The highlights of this particular, you see a shortened amount of narrative regarding the narrative species in all of our wildlife programs. That was kind of folded a little bit back in, a little bit. So jumping to page, sorry here. 68 and 69 are the goals and objectives. This is the section also that we incorporate all of our formal beach management and marsh management plan, those environmental related concepts and goals and strategies. So the one comment that I'll share in front of everyone that we'll discuss is that this section in our last comprehensive plan was pretty extensive, and I think there was some debate on whether or not we should shrink it or expand it, but ultimately landed here because this was why Kiawah was important. So it might seem verbose, but I think it's important and relative to understanding Kiawah's natural assets. In general, so.
I guess the only question I had in reading that page 56 about the short roads, the 70% really got my attention, and I was really curious. Did we actually have information going back that far? That it's a 70% decline. I didn't know whether that was like nationally we've seen it, a 70% decline.
I can add, actually, that's national, so I can
Okay.
put it, I can specify that that's national, that's not local.
Okay.
That's where the dog owners took a hit, right, in that paragraph?
Limit on the dogs.
Yeah. Poor dogs.
There was a study done in 1974 where a dog approached a bird.
The dog has
And the
been
bird
banished.
flew off.
Never to be seen again.
We have another comment, and we can add it somewhere, you had 62, we can add anywhere in regards to adding another section. Jean had asked about kind of waterways, do we want to add anything about protect the inlet from erosion?
Yeah, the inlet's right in the cove, 7% of the water is going through there, so I just wonder if we need to add that in on waterways on 62. I know Kika owns it.
Piece of property owner.
No, the inlet's
Show
going
page
through the
62,
cove.
I think.
That channel, like 7% of the island's water back out.
Yeah.
So when we talk about waterways on page
Well, it's not 62, I don't think.
62,
62 is just the
the page change, sorry.
waterway, you're
Are
talking
you talking the map or the?
about the mark?
Let me just go back to the old version here. One of
Yeah, it wasn't, maybe 61?
Marsh ecosystem management plan.
Yeah, it was the paragraph right before that illustration, one second.
No,
Page 61.
it's not 61
Yeah, it's on
now.
61, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So, add something in there about the inlet,
When you say inlet, what are you just referring to? Because we could, if you're thinking like infrastructure or the actual natural environment, 'cause that technically is still folded into the marsh
The
ecosystem.
natural environment,
So
protecting those inlets.
keep going there. I'm trying to understand.
Well, the inlets are draining, like I say, so much of the water from the island, right? In my mind, they're as important as the marsh for the island's resiliency.
Maintaining
But-
them from
Right.
dredging them.
Maintain them from erosion, from dredging, from
Do
other
they-
factors.
Whether they accrete, I don't know if those things.
They don't accrete, but they erode
They do
pretty heavily, yeah.
Yeah, in the session we had on the 30th,
Mhm.
they covered all of the steps they use,
Right.
they being Kika.
Mhm.
And, I mean, there wasn't anything that wasn't either understood, covered, in the general language,
Right.
or the question about treating, they covered that, how often they do it, what the standard is, and the certifications and everything. So, I mean,
Is the inlet cove one the only one that's not, the inlets that's not mentioned or not referred to?
That was the only one that came to mind when I was reading this.
Because Gene lives there.
That's because I live there.
Well, that's my
It's
point.
self-interest.
That's my
Yeah.
point. Is that, if it's, it should be about all the inlets, not,
Yeah.
Right.
There are
and there's more than one.
I think.
whatever, I don't know. I don't know
And
that.
I brought it because it's just so much of the water from the island is going through those down in the
Right.
cove.
It's not so much.
There's two big,
The biggest one is the one They're out on, basically Governors, that goes into the marsh from behind the Vandross Plantation.
Well, I thought Brian was saying like 70% of our water is going through. Go ahead, Mark.
There are 11 outfalls on the island. The most dominant
Not
are
going through here.
the two ends, the Inlet Cove and then at the extreme eastern end. But there are actually 11 outfall locations.
Let me come back and ask my question, I guess, a different way. You mentioned more of the environmental component of it, as opposed to,
We're talking about natural resources here, yeah.
Well, that was the one that he was talking about was in the context of
drainage.
drainage, right?
Yeah, so
Right.
that's why it's more infrastructure or,
Infrastructure, is it protection? That
it's
you're-
still, you're just saying protection of a natural
Yeah, I
resource.
see where it
now.
comes from, though, yeah, yeah.
And
And we can talk about the infrastructure section.
Yeah, maybe it should be in.
Depends on how it's discussed.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to how,
Yes, the protection of it, like I say, make sure it's not eroding.
Well, we're going to be working
But
on,
isn't this section about marsh more in that,
The section here,
yeah, page 61?
Yeah.
Is it
This-
on
yeah.
the resiliency?
so the inlet is an engineered piece, something engineered in order to help move the water off the island.
Correct.
So I don't see that as, natural resources. That might be
It does
under,
go infrastructure.
that might be under,
Resiliency.
what do they call, building, not buildings, what do we call them?
Resiliency?
No, no.
There is a section later on where it talks about all the
talking priority
buildings
investment
and.
section,
What's that?
the priority investment.
Priority investment. I think
Oh,
That might be,
Yeah.
because this is not a natural resource, this is an engineered resource. I would say that's where it goes, not here.
Perfect.
okay. And again, I think it's a Kika property, so it's not really town.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
Okay.
But the whole thing is
Right.
supposedly the island.
Well,
Right.
but the town's looking at, talking about how to, putting
Manage it.
regulation, how to manage it.
Right,
So
right.
ultimately, we're going to stumble into it, so.
Okay.
Okay.
I will
I think
We'll table.
Gene's raising it because it's probably been the most problematic in terms of erosion and.
Oh, yeah,
it's being,
I'm sure, I'm sure.
it's being
I'm sure.
repaired right now, yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that,
that's a.
I'm not saying it's not
separate issue.
important, I'm
Yeah.
saying I think it belongs in a different place.
Yes,
That's fine,
and I-
that's fine.
got it.
Back to page 69.
68, 69.
68, 69.
Hearing none, cultural resources.
We're getting better.
It's on page 77.
Yeah.
Cultural
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 resources. This is the stewardship of Kiawah's cultural, historical, and community excellence. Everything that's related to history, culture, health, outreach. Anything that has rung a bell for you guys in this particular element? No, it's not the sexy one. So it's,
Yeah, that was pretty cut and dried.
well, keeping going, we'll jump to community facilities and,
I have questions in regards to
Yeah.
that, to this
Yeah.
section. Let's see. Questions that I have. Okay, this is just Jean's. On page 79, you asked me to add public safety or the fire, or CCSO or fire protection and others. I guess, are you suggesting that that should be added in the narrative?
Let me see what it was. I'm having trouble reading the yellow.
Here,
What
I've
page
got
you
it
on,
in the
Stephanie?
green.
79?
79?
Yellow on white doesn't work well, does it?
No, it doesn't.
No, under overview, I mean, you said add public safety or CCSO. Are you just saying in the overview to add that? Because we listed
Yeah,
other
up in community
agencies.
facilities in the blue box, because we were talking about fire
Well, the blue
protection.
box we can't change, because the blue
That's
box
from the-
is the
Oh,
state
never mind then. Never
Okay,
mind.
okay, so we're,
Thank you.
okay.
I've got a couple of questions on 79, and one being on the big ideas, Kiawah Goes Green Initiative. that's not explained or published anywhere. What did you get from the big idea?
I think we've added it in here.
Yeah, on page 84 is that reference.
Yeah, on
and
page 84,
This was the connection to more of
the outreach.
the infrastructure related around. So you notice like EV charging stations, how we handle,
That dovetails to the second question. The EV infrastructure and CF3, develop a comprehensive EV charging network, is another one where a survey was done, and I am not familiar with the results. I'm hearing a lot of scuttlebutt. I haven't seen the results. We haven't talked about the results, and there's questions now about whether or not what's been put forward in terms of need and future investments is really justified by anything other than somebody's desire to keep up with the,
But then CF 3.1, the first bullet point says, assess EV usage and engage stakeholders. So I think, I don't know that anybody is presuming that there's a complete strategy yet. It's still in development.
well, there's also, let me go back to
And we changed
the
from develop.
objective is develop a comprehensive network.
We changed that to strategy, though.
There is a goal and
where's
an
that? Where's that?
objective
Sorry.
to develop this network.
But we changed that, we changed network to strategy,
Strategy.
Andy.
It's on 86.
Andy,
It's changed.
I had network change to strategy because I think we have to have a strategy in place before we start talking about building out infrastructure
Well, we need to, based on
Yeah.
what, though?
based on these other points that are in
Did we get the
3.1,
survey, yeah?
doing a survey.
I'd like to understand the survey
Yeah,
and understand what really justifies even going this far.
agreed.
Because specifically, I mean, you look at charging network on the island, in addition to the space it takes up in areas where nobody owns it. I mean, everybody owns something, but the town doesn't own it.
Right.
And the cost of it is in the hundreds of thousands per station. And again, what are we talking about?
I think you gotta wait till that, to get the
yeah,
information developed before you can
that
make that.
strategy CF
Well,
3.1
it's got to be based on something.
details that.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're charging, what, 18 cents a kilowatt hour? So,
to charge.
you know, it's not like it's free for the
Right.
consumer.
Any other big points on this one?
On 86, on the CF1, the second bullet, let's say coordinate through KIA.
Second bullet?
Second bullet.
You know, again, we took KIA out a lot of places.
Why?
Because you weren't there, Andy. Because it's not a done deal. If it were a done deal, if we could sit there and say, all these people want to participate and they're going to work together, then we'd leave it, it would be throughout the document. But we took it out many
In 10
places.
years, you don't think we can accomplish it?
Have you accomplished it in the last 10?
We didn't try.
I
Well,
think
it doesn't seem like
Closest
we're,
thing to it was the marsh management. And it got structured in a way that the town ended up
I'll pull back a little
jumping and
bit
taking over.
broader than even that response. So this, again, is just looking really at more detail of how we message and communicate, how we message between entities and coordinate that. That, in my mind, doesn't necessarily have to be at that KIA level. That could be just between the organizations itself. Sure. Like it could be directions that funnel through that KIA as like, hey, this is how we best think we should strategize around it. But putting in KIA here, it may not be necessary.
If you're going to communicate, which the first bullet identifies as a population of Kiawah, you're going to have to communicate effectively through some agreed-to communication vehicle.
But we don't have to
Or plan.
enumerate it here.
What?
We don't have to say KIA there.
It limits us.
Gives us latitude.
We talked about this a lot in
Fine. You're going to coordinate it through member organizations. The coordination vehicle, hopefully, will be set up as KIA.
Remember, KIA is not.
I know it's not, John, come on. Don, it's not. It's not. I know it's not. We gotta look forward strategically and say, what are we gonna have 10 years from now, and what do we need?
But-
And we're
but
trying to
even-
set it up.
Even as KIA is presented in this, is an advisory body, it's not a, it's a, at this point, a organization that's going to make recommendations and not rule. Okay? So
Right.
that's where we're at right now.
That's right, and it's not the way it's rewritten, as
Okay.
I've given it to you, it's not set up that way. It's set up as an advisory
Thanks.
group,
All right, let's
and
move on.
individual entities will implement it.
Any
Okay.
section 6, anything else on that one? Moving on to housing, from the last time we were together as a group, this section looks quite different, so I just wanted to highlight the goals and objectives, somewhat streamlined on page 97.
Wait, hey, Stephanie, have you fixed, remember we talked about I sent you a thing about the inconsistency of data in 91 versus 92, has that been reconciled?
I'm not,
Where,
The
repeat that again.
real estate, the numbers don't match from page to page. I don't know which one's right, but they're inconsistent.
We don't even come close to what KIA.
I,
Yeah, page 91.
tell me again, sorry, I did not. What was that?
Okay, single
On 91, you
on
have,
91, you have the median price for single-family homes increased from 2.7 to 2.9. But on the next page, median price is more than doubled from 1.5 to 3.1. There's inconsistencies in the numbers. I sent you that in comments, that we don't have to go over it now, but we need to reconcile the numbers because the 91 and 92 don't work together. One's right, one's wrong. I don't care which is which, but they have to be consistent.
okay, so we have 2 point, okay, so on this chart, I'm looking at the graph.
I'm not looking at the chart, I'm looking at the
Text.
paragraph.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Single-family homes, for example, the same thing with villas, home sites, they're all inconsistent. The pages
And the
in
table.
market trends, the pages from single-family
Okay, I
homes
got it.
and then market trends.
Got it.
So you don't have to reconcile it now, but it needs to be
Yeah,
reconciled.
I'm making a note now.
Okay.
Again, here's another place, Stephanie, where the failing information would be more current and more consistent. Example, one thing you mentioned in terms of the inventory, there are only 130 properties available on Kiawah currently. And that's 63 homes, 25 lots, and 42 villas. Now, that's for sale. That'll change. But the fact is, when we're looking to build out, the only ones that really affect build-out is 25 units. The rest of them are already built. So you're talking about 25 units to build out, and whether or not you consider that to be moving 25 homes is over density, I don't know, but I think we've got to get information that's consistent,
So if
that leads to conclusions.
I'm trying to understand, so on page 100, we're showing 366.
Wait, you're going into land?
That's land use.
Well, 'cause I'm trying to figure out what numbers he's coming from. I wasn't sure if he's looking at that.
Are you looking at land
Build
use
out.
or?
He said build out.
Build out and land use.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's talking
we
about
do-
build
We
out.
talk about build out in the land
And that's in
use.
land use, so I wasn't sure if he was.
But
what
still,
those
the
numbers
same
were.
number.
No,
I have some questions on that. No,
So,
it isn't.
So there was a question previously, and I think this is where, just the source of data, you have real estate sales versus actual developed properties. So it might be a property that's been sold but not developed yet.
Right,
So I
exactly.
think that's what.
These are
you're-
available, right,
So
for sale.
that number is not captured in,
In the
Net 80.
100, yeah, it's not
yeah,
captured.
yeah, whether the property's been sold or not, that,
Right,
And some of the discrepancies may be because some of the data includes Casik and some of the data didn't.
yeah, and that's
include
noted
Casik.
in
Yeah.
But
some of that.
what is the point of presenting data on properties that are sold and developed when we're talking about build-out?
We're not talking about build out on this section.
This
Build out
section
is
is-
because of
Not
the
here,
land use.
it's covered in this section, covered in the housing section.
Where,
And just one other bit of information was the 2024 half-year data was taken out because it was a little confusing because it was so skewed by the Cape sales.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, we took that.
So that's why we just
And we should,
went to 2023.
yeah, we should take Casik out, because Casik is not part of the town of Kiawah. So we should have, Casik shouldn't be in there at all.
I would take the real estate people that have that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we should take that out.
So, quick question, Stephanie, on page 91, just from my understanding, is that under home sites, the last sentence says that, that is, category encompasses a variety of lot types. Some home sites are in fee buildable, offering opportunities for custom home construction. Is the implied thought that some are not buildable?
Didn't we take that
we
out?
took,
Yes,
there,
by deed,
I thought we
Or in
took that
conservancy or
out.
something?
by deed.
there was a section that we
Page
took out.
91.
That was,
91.
we left it in, because there was a debate about leaving it in. And we left that part in, remember we had parts in there that talked about essentially the conservation lots. I had all that, so I took that out, but we decided to leave the other piece
Yeah,
in.
well, I just kind of hangs out there for me, that's all.
Yeah, I would take that sentence out.
There are
Tell me
lots
where
out
you
there
at.
that by deed are not
The last
developed.
sentence under
91?
hope,
Page
the last
91, that
sentence
last
is under
paragraph.
They
home
can't be
sites.
developed.
I thought we
I know.
taken that out.
I know, but
ladies and
that's
gents,
an implied thought.
ladies and gents,
Okay,
we
got it.
we gotta get one at a
Sounds
time
like
so we can hear, one at a time. So I think you got which sentence, Stephanie, the last paragraph of 91? And who left? I forgot.
Yeah.
John, you had something just now?
No,
Well,
Stephanie's
So Joanne, we didn't really think adding the Casik would be a big deal, and it was easier to get the data that way.
Was it, we couldn't, the real estate people can't just take Casik out?
Yeah, they can provide some information for me without this.
Is that easy, Amanda, is that we
Well,
have it
I mean,
on
I
good
think during
authority
the
that we
discussion,
can do that?
It was also
Yeah,
like,
Dan's got the information,
Yeah, thank you.
and it was presented.
that his includes Casik.
Yeah, but we'll take it out because
It should be out.
it's not
This
part
one,
of our plan.
Yeah.
Should be,
Yeah, it should be.
I think the debate that we included it because of the potential of it ever being, well, not potential, but it's
Annex.
always been close enough to consider annex, so understanding that picture, that was one of the factors of leaving it in there. It's not a, like
I would
a,
take, I mean, those, the
I mean,
people
there's
who
a-
live there voted not to
it's-
I
become.
mean, we understand it, but I'm saying the
But there was
concept.
only a
It's the
handful,
footnote
you know,
on
there at the time,
94.
remember?
2015 did it.
Yeah, in 2016, I bet there wasn't 30 homes living in full-time at Casik.
I don't know.
So there's a footnote on 94.
Yeah.
that Sort of was the rationale for just leave it in. 94.
I wouldn't.
Leave
The
it
only
in.
place that can
Yeah.
seek information
Right,
really
right.
belongs is in community facilities.
Well, my problem with the footnote on page 94 was when it said,
Yeah,
integral part of the Kiawah real estate market, it would say adjacent location, that's fine, and shared amenities.
you're right.
I don't have any amenities there,
Right.
so
No,
it's not
unless you're a
shared.
club member.
Unless you're a
They're not
club
shares,
member.
that's right.
Right.
If you
Yeah.
want to just say adjacent location, I can live with that.
I agree with that.
Again, that's why I say.
And I'll
put it in
double check,
community.
I think on page 91, I have to confirm, I think that is only Kiawah number. That one doesn't include the seat. 94 that I footnote includes the seat.
Yeah,
So
so-
we had a note there.
So you think the 2.9 is,
The page 91, because this is Kiawah Island, I believe, because I got that information, I believe that information did not include the seat, but the 94 that I footnoted did include the seat. But I'll go
But
back and double
91 and
check.
92.
I think
And that's possibly, and I
think that
can see
includes
because the 92,
You don't-
I may not have redone that, so I'll double check. I put a note on there.
They just need to be consistent.
Right.
So 92 includes Cassique as well. That's why 91 and 92 don't jive.
Right,
Okay,
correct.
because it doesn't say that, it
says
says
right
Kiawah
underneath.
Island.
Right.
No, it says in the
But then
In the
footnote.
footnote.
And just so you guys know, Kiawah Island on 91, I put that because it only includes Kiawah Island and Cassique. On 92, I need to rephrase that or take Cassique out because 92 includes Cassique. So maybe that's why the numbers are a little bit off. But I can pull Cassique out, as you said, Joanne, so that when someone's looking at 91 and 92, they're
Right.
consistent and it's only Kiawah.
I think that's, okay. Okay. Now we get to my favorite section.
I think,
So you're going to remove Cassique?
I think we should.
Yeah.
hope we can,
On page 94 as well?
yeah.
Okay,
Any
we added
place.
that footnote that before we wanted to keep it in, but now we don't.
I told them to take it out, but
I'm not against leaving it in personally. And, I mean, as long as you reference it and left it in.
It's contextual.
yeah, they don't want to be associated with us, so leave it out.
All right.
I think, Jean,
Maybe you.
Yes.
back,
Maybe just you.
No,
you asked,
it's more than me.
I wasn't
They don't want to be
sure
associated
on
with-
95, or on page 95, for redevelopment, you had put you want to add a bullet, you said new trend with group buying initiatives, Ocean Woods,
Wait.
Cottage, so I wasn't quite sure what you were referring to, adding it
Let
on
me just go back one second, trying to find where you were.
Page 95.
page 95. You had put new trend, under new trend,
Yeah, I was,
or add new trend,
or
or add a
under,
bullet, I think you said, add a bullet called new trend, and you said with group buying.
with group buying,
initiatives.
yeah, that's where they, what they did in Ocean Woods, what is happening in Kiawah, the Cottage Owner Association.
I don't know what, I'm sorry, I don't know what group buying initiatives.
Oh, the Pavers Project and others.
Oh, the
Ocean Woods.
pavers,
That Ocean Woods did.
okay, yeah. So you want to add kind of that bullet in regards to, is that redevelopment?
Under renovations or,
Yeah, that would be like renovations. Okay. You want to add
or
about,
under the aging housing stock with redevelopment and renovation.
so about the,
And that's creating a streamlined process with the town, with ARB, all these other entities to
So,
help freshen up the housing stock.
so you want to just put a like a
That's-
header in there?
But it's under the first bullet there. On the second column of 95.
So streamlined contractor builder, you're thinking? That encompasses it, so,
Yeah,
2-1 encompasses it.
yeah.
okay, we're
Okay.
good then?
Done deal.
Good.
Okay, I think that was your only comment
Yep.
that I didn't have. Okay. We're in land use.
What is development capacity?
Yeah,
where are you?
What is,
That's the same
it's under
question.
big ideas, development
yeah,
capacity.
I
I think, did we put that under a bullet? I mean, under a,
what is,
Under big
yeah, what
ideas.
does that mean, development capacity?
Future development capacity.
When, I think it
Thinking that's what
referenced
it is, I
the
thought it was-
Doesn't say
conversation
future,
we
and it just says development capacity.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means.
okay, we can take it out.
Well, I don't know, maybe we just need to define it better, I just don't know what it means. Okay,
Because
I'm good with that.
I think it was centered around the whole build-out being folded into this, like,
Yeah,
where.
that's-
But it really
where-
makes no sense, honestly, because it doesn't speak to anything.
That's what I thought.
So I'm fine taking it out.
Simple as that.
On here, the only thing, I know Joanne had some questions in regards to the build-out chart, and John has to update. I know there's a typo, and I sent John to update that, but
You're on page 100?
yes, you get one.
Because what I did, I took KIRE land map, okay? And on this, they have dots where there's a house and no dots where it's a lot. Now, I know it's not, this was redone, I believe, in April. And I know some of the vacant lots currently have dots, but I didn't include that. I counted every lot that doesn't have a dot on it, and I got to 276. So I mentioned this to Shannon, and I'm going to try and reconcile that number because she has on her thing 366. That's a big difference. That's, 110 buildable lots.
She has our, same as we.
We got this from her.
We get this from parcel.
This is parcel data.
We didn't get this from Kika.
Oh, she got it from the same place you got it then.
Oh, then from the county.
Yeah.
It's county parcel data.
So I'm unclear why that's so different from this.
That comes from you guys. Do you
That
guys include
includes just-
up to date?
Right, the dots are going to be based on receiving an ARB permit, not necessarily a building permit. So that's going to be probably the discrepancy. We currently are, our tabulation is 322. That's what we are billing incentive fees on.
Okay.
So they may, Joanne, they may just not all.
I'm sure they don't.
Is that in
And
Dan's
I
number?
just wanted to, for an order of, we don't need a precise number, it's more
Yeah.
order of magnitude in thinking of infrastructure needs and stuff. We're
Right.
trying to get a handle on what full build out of the island looks like.
So-
The 366 number would represent what, at a freezing moment, what lots would be available for new construction of single-family homes. And ultimately, approximately 5,300 is the projection to be what our final build-up number would be of total units. So the real question I think I would ask is, based on our parcel data, you want to know how many units can be built between now and that 5,300 number?
Well, I was just trying to get a handle on what is the total number of dwelling units if everything were built out on Kiawah.
It's not as simple because not everything is a single-family lot, and so
Right,
there's some
and I was focusing
assumptions
on
that,
single
there's some assumptions that have to be made with that projection. But if we're just looking at single-family lots, that's where that 366 number comes in at, as would be an approximate of remaining single-family homes that could be built.
Yeah, and I think that number's high.
And that could be because some of these have already been permitted, and just have let me not say permitted, but at least beginning that process of permitting, and it hasn't transitioned to county parcel data yet.
Yeah, no, but I know on this thing, there's some lots, like there's one lot that has no dot on it, but the house, on that lot is a house that we had on the house tour, so I know it's been built. So there are some inconsistencies.
But I mean,
But
again,
there-
If the order of
it's not going to be
magnitude,
an exact number.
But I think, and they
Okay.
said that map you're looking at, their dots is just ARB, it doesn't have to do with, it's ARB permits, it has nothing to do with.
and it needs
Yeah.
all right, I don't want
I
to
mean,
dwell on
maybe you
it, but
should put in the note that this is maybe somewhat of an estimate still. It's not an
Okay.
exact figure.
And when you
It
say
says
parcel
projected.
data, what are you referring to?
From the county.
So this is the assessor.
So we go to the assessor's office and you get essentially the GIS parcel data map that shows all the lots. So that's where we're pulling our information
Their
from.
data is pulled from us. We're sending, once an issued CO has happened, that goes through that process and it's updated in their site. So sometimes it takes a little bit, there's a lag between, like you can even see it after a new sale, like that property might have been sold, but if you go in there, GIS, it still shows that older property owner. So it's just sometimes the lag time between that.
Again, I would use Dan's information if it's available to update this and take out that bottom line, or the asterisk anyway, and at least get it on the same page with information that's been publicized on the island.
I'm
In
not quite
fact,
sure
the
where.
Charleston County information is so fraught with not only delays, but inconsistency in terminology. They put one thing in for something we may call something else.
Yeah, but it's just parcel data that we're pulling from, so I'm not sure. So you're saying that we should not use Charleston County parcel data?
No, I would use Dan's information. I would use KIRE.
we're not sure if they're not pulling parcel data. And they may have not building permits, theirs is just home sales. We're talking about undeveloped lots and everything, they have just sales.
I would check with him. No,
I'll check with Dan.
they check
I'll reach out to Dan
no,
and
they-
see.
They covered extensive information,
Oh,
including
okay.
the built-out information.
Okay, I'll reach out to Dan
All right.
And you
and see what he has.
need to finish the last paragraph.
Oh, good catch.
Where?
Evolving to
It's
this.
evolving.
It's,
Oh,
it never ends.
It is evolving.
It is evolving.
it's there,
I'm waiting for
Keep evolving.
it's there, it's just that I need to pull it down.
Where's that?
Huh?
Where's,
It's,
It's
this is
under-
done through a program in design, and so it's a box, I just need to pull it down.
The text is
It's
hidden by
hidden,
that.
the text is there, it's just hidden, this is done
It
in
was a test to
program
see
called
if we would-
InDesign.
Yeah, it's a test to see if you read it.
And then I need to put a period after density.
So what is, it's kind of hanging out there for me, I probably just don't understand it, but the Beachwalker Office Park and Marsh Point Reservoir 4 and Beachwalker, that's 118 units. Is that included in those numbers? Is that separate from those new units? Is it a subset of those numbers?
He's walking, he's talking about on the bill,
Bottom
of
of
the,
page 100.
yeah.
There's three items out there identified, which I assume are development sites, and I just don't know how they relate to the
To the 5294.
5294.
John, have you included those because they've been platted?
I think you probably took the snapshot of my notes down below,
Oh,
if that, I think that's what that is.
Oh, you're talking about those three. Did you want that include, should that be, did you want that
Yeah, I
not?
didn't think that, I didn't want to call out specific, it was not calling out each specific remaining developable site.
You want that out? Should that be
Yeah,
out?
remain
Okay.
out, yeah.
Okay, so you just need to send me an updated, because this is
I said, yeah. you got-
screenshot. You sent it to me today? Okay.
No, yes, sir. yeah.
We did- Okay. I will put it
A
in there.
lot of this information wasn't intended to be audited. You're talking information that's useful, but not necessarily specifically or accurately calculated. It's general. There's not a, what I would call, there's not a substantial or material difference between what's presented and what's fact. But it's close, and it's good enough to give you an idea.
Sure.
You don't need
best
to be
available.
exact.
Sounds like a guy who's learned a lot of me.
You're damn right.
Say you on the snapshot.
Especially trying to figure out what's not material, what is
I think
material.
it clears that. We've got land use.
It's always going to be a snapshot.
Stephanie, on page 101, the land use categories and zoning districts, I think I sent you this too, where open space can be KC or PR, conservation is just KC, it is not PR according to 12-74
No,
of the
so-
LDR.
No, conservation is an allowed, the zoning district, that's an allowed zoning district in conservation.
PR?
PR,
Yeah.
Yeah, so the land use,
then what's the difference between open space and conservation? I mean, if you look at 1274 doesn't show PR, it just shows KC.
1274 is the zoning district KC.
Yeah.
Not the
So
land use.
not the land use, it's just the zoning district. So, but if you look at the 104, which is our land use table, you'll see that there are elements of that couldn't be in conservation that you could have in PR. So if that's something that we want to, if you want to do that change and exclusively eliminate the PR zoning district, that's just modifies the recommendation of if there is a, let's just say there's a future land use designation of conservation and an associated zoning district, the actual land uses that are associated with that would be restricted to only conservation and not PR. So
And I'm thinking of that with regard to Sam Spit. If that eventually becomes conservation, we don't want PR on there. We don't want PR allowed things.
We don't know that. I mean, at this
Well-
point,
You're right, but we don't want to give it as right.
we're not. We're saying coordinate.
And I mean, that's why I think the flexibility is in there, that you could have either KC or PR. It's not exclusive to one or the other.
It makes it no difference than from open space then. If it's designated open space, it can be conservation or park and rec. If it's a conservation thing, it's conserved. And, I didn't memorize the permitted use table of the differences, but I think it's important.
What particularly do you want to change?
I just want to take on the conservation thing, it's KC, not KCPR.
She wants to eliminate PR.
I mean, you guys could make that.
LU 13 or what?
No, I'm on page 101.
101 under
I'm
land
just
use.
looking on the land use,
Category.
that at the bottom, open space is KC or PR, conservation should just be
Conservation
KC.
should be PR.
Yeah, so
Build something
I'm going
there.
to give another example of how this table functions, and then you guys can make that recommendation. Just so for example, if you look at the high-density residential area, even medium-density residential, all of our residential categories include some element of PR,
Right.
right? That's because Kiawah, our Parks and Recreation zoning district is not the traditional park designation that you would see maybe in another municipality. There are elements of recreation under that category that would be allowed in majority of all of our land use categories based on the factor of mixed use and how Kiawah has been developing. So that's all I'm saying, is to recognize if you remove that removes that element of Kiawah's uniqueness. That's all I'm saying.
Because if we want it in, we just designated open space instead of conservation. Conservation is conservation. If we don't have to use that designation. If we think we want to have PR permitted uses allowed on a piece of land, then we leave it open space. But otherwise, those two designations are basically the same. So I say we take PR out of it.
Great.
Is that where the code is now?
Is that one consensus? Does everyone want, or is it just two people that want?
There's no open space with the PR use?
There's open space with PR use, but not
That's all
conservation.
it says.
No, they're two
It says
separate
open
categories.
space, KCPR.
And I'm fine with that.
I would also-
But the one below it, conservation.
So while you guys have this discussion, I would flip to 103 and just remind you what the land use categories are. So as you do evaluate that, you can be certain that this is the intent that you want to make recommendation on. So active recreation and open space, notice the difference between that and conservation, and then you could kind of lean in on what direction you want to move.
Does anybody object to taking PR out of conservation on that first
I
table?
didn't think it was in there before.
It shouldn't be. So are you good with taking it out?
Yeah.
You're good? You're
I'm good.
So we're good, take it out.
John, what do you think?
Is
Thank
it
you.
allowed now?
Okay.
Yeah, it's allowed today.
It's allowed in there.
I mean, that current table has been no changes. That's the current code.
That's all.
I think Ms. Hennessy's comments are valid, that you could present that if you want to just only have conservation as either open space, truly just designated for undeveloped properties only, and that essentially no, other than what's permitted under our KC district, which is treated lands or low pervious elements or trails of that nature. That's the only thing that would be permitted in the conservation land use category. So, I mean, I don't have an issue with this, just whether or not the commission wants to make that recommendation.
Yeah, and if that's the code, that's where it belongs, it stays there.
But we're talking about changing it. I mean, we have.
Yeah,
That's not saying to change. If
You
want
guys
to
have the
change,
ability
put
to
in
change it today.
steps.
You guys have that, if you guys want to change it, we can change that.
I think
sorry,
we have a
I'm not
consensus
making a
to change.
If you want to change it, as opposed to saying, this is what we have now, Then you got a section back there
Oh,
that
so you put
says
in goals and...
goals and steps. That's
Okay,
where it belongs.
that's what he's saying. He said, it should be an objective.
But I don't, because when I read 1274, when I read the conservation rules, it's conservation, and changing it, otherwise it's the same as open space.
Could you pull up zoning code and show,
Yeah, I was trying to pull it up.
It's a
Well-
permitted use,
The
as
LDR.
it stands now in the code.
70,
It's still a permitted use.
I just want to be sure that when something's designated conservation, we use the permitted use table for
Maybe.
conservation.
Maybe. When you change it,
There's a bookmark,
then
that third
then you
one.
can use it.
But if we have,
Yeah.
if we want a lot of different uses, we can designate something open space.
Don't try to sell it before you get it in the code.
1274.
So stop at, just to show plant parks and records before you jump down to 74 too. So I think you can hit them both.
There's nothing wrong with the strategy in that.
70, go up a little bit
That's for
more.
Ocean Course
That's-
District,
Go up one more.
One more.
it's 12.72 probably.
So if you look at the purpose and intent of that PR zoning district, open space is part of that. And so parks and open space. So what I think I hear Ms. Hennessy saying is that this category should be dedicated solely for parks or open space. And if you go to 74, conservation, our land use category, there should be, there it is, essentially no development allowed in KC.
So
So,
PR should not be.
The alignment of recommendations of, if a rezoning were to come before you guys, and there is a recommendation to go from our conservation zoning district to PR, if that future land use designation is conservation, that recommendation would not be supported by that table because the Parks and Recreation category is not part of that land use designation.
But they could come before as open space, that's what
They
she's saying.
could come before it as open
There
space.
is that ability
Yeah,
to do that.
we have a designation, but conservation.
Right, that's what I said, it's a, if the commission wants to do that, you guys can do that.
Seems
I
that,
see nods, yes.
yeah, it seems like it gives it protects conservation and still gives the opportunity for somebody to have open space in Parks and
Parking lots
Recreation.
and tennis courts and
Exactly.
whatever. Yeah, so,
I think that's, unless I'm misunderstanding something.
Yeah.
No,
This-
I got it.
But you can have some permitted uses in that space.
Yeah, but then you have it
They
then.
could be limited as they were there.
Yeah, the only thing that is that you're essentially looking at the conservation, you're aligning the conservation zoning district with the land use. That's the only thing that you're doing right now. So
That
that's,
makes sense.
Yeah, I was just looking at, why shouldn't we do it?
I mean, the way of that
if
reads-
there is something from a development standpoint that is something
Wild market for the last.
that you would want, or that, let me not say want, that could be oriented towards flexibility. I think it's just flexibility, because there could be a situation where there's a large parcel that's zoned conservation, and there's extremely portions of that parcel that are more sensitive in nature than others. And so that would be in my mind right now. There might be some other
We'd always
examples.
have the right to
but-
rezone and allow that.
Subdivided, yeah.
We could always do that.
Yeah, I'm not ruling out the strategy method. I'm just trying to give a response of what might be the,
Why don't you just leave LU 13 in the second bullet and leave that in there. Assess the existing regulations, outcomes relative to stakeholder goals and community vision. Leave it in as a goal.
No,
The focus is on the goals, not on language in the narratives.
Well,
Narratives, the narratives is,
I think there's a general consensus that
the
can be.
narratives is actual, supposedly accurate information on the current status. The goals and the strategies look forward.
That
Right,
page is,
and that's
the
why I'm
pages
hoping-
are the same.
No, make it your
I'll leave that in.
That's what you're almost.
That's what I
Numbers
want.
are. Yeah, the page numbers aren't the same as the page numbers in the
Flip back to the, I think you're on the, where, if you go back to the review, I think, trying to get
where?
back.
Back to the zoning,
Blue beam, I think that's where you're trying to get back to where we are now?
1028.
Oh, I
No,
see.
no,
I see what
you're
you did.
fine.
Never mind.
You're going
I
to
see what
the-
you did, never mind.
We're going to the goals. I think Andy's talking about, we're on the goals on page 108.
wait, check.
We're on land use now, all right,
Okay.
108?
Yeah,
107, 106, 107?
Yeah, I just know in the last iteration, it was really tough to read the colors. I wanted to see if it's any clearer.
no, it's still kind of.
I don't think we've changed this with John. We need to
Yeah.
You're talking about the difference between the big, the
Conservation.
B and the R1, low density.
Also, I think between, oh no, it's the green.
The high density
Yeah.
parcel.
But I just need you to update that.
Yeah, we'll revisit this. I think that's important.
One thing that I did want you guys to note in land use, there was a greater, I guess, element of looking at the urban growth boundary and the town's sort of involvement or recognition of that, the urban growth boundary from a regional planning standpoint.
What's your question? No one had comments?
No, I'm
on
just kind of recapping some
Oh,
of the
I
big.
was like, no one had comments, okay.
Go back to 1.3, the second bullet. Why are we taking that out?
Oh, you're back on, he's on 108 under the
I'm
goals.
on 103, 109.
You're back.
Yeah, it's 108 on here. Go, no,
Yeah,
no, go
108.
the other way. He's on the goals.
Yeah, 108.
Yeah, I'm missing a page in here.
They only have 77 pages, so that doesn't even have.
No, that's what I was saying, go to the blue beam one.
You don't
That's,
have 108, 109.
Yeah.
Gotcha. You tricked me.
Try to get you there.
Stephanie, I had asked you on LU 1.1, this appeared for the very first time and hadn't been in any of our previous workshops. The second bullet, consider amendments to existing codes that promote smart growth principles. Larry, Ron, I don't remember us ever talking about smart growth principles, do you?
I don't want dumb ones.
But, I mean, we've never had, that's a totally,
I don't know, I'm sorry for being snarky.
that's fine, I don't mind the humor, but we've never,
I don't,
we've
Click
never
the,
had that
second.
in any of our previous discussions. I don't know who added it or when it was added, but I don't know what a smart growth principle is, and I don't think we want that bullet.
I think I meant to delete that one. I deleted I was thinking L1, I just missed that one.
Entry.
I
Okay, you're deleting that.
Second
LU
tab.
1.2, I deleted that last thing. I just had to
Yeah.
No, the second bullet in LU 1.1.
Right.
And you're eliminating, that's
I'm
what
eliminating that.
1028. This one's
eliminating that.
1029.
Did you
Yeah, that's the
also
one.
want LU 1.2? Did we
I want
talk about
1028.
Control of sustainable growth, or you were fine with that?
No,
I thought I read that, no, that was the other side.
no, we didn't like that one.
Right, so I just put a line through it, I'll finish it, I'll put something else there so you guys know, and then also eliminating LU 1.3 was your other.
There you go.
Yeah, and this was the first mention of overlay zones, and you did change develop to consider, so that's fine. Overlay zones do have their place.
so I went back and reread this just so that, to give you a considered answer, is that I think that the LU 1.1, review and update land use zoning to support sustainable development, which is one of our foundations. And I think it implies that you're going to do smart.
Yeah, but that was something new that we'd never,
Yeah.
like,
No, I agree. Let's get rid of
we
it.
didn't talk about that before.
Actually, it was, I just went through here, it actually wasn't the last one,
It wasn't the last one,
but
and
it wasn't before that.
The one before this one?
No, it
Because
was in the 1024, but it wasn't before that one, I think is what you're saying.
Right, that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
yeah.
It appeared in 1024,
Right.
and I'm like, where'd it
Where
come
did that
from?
come up?
really
Yeah,
know
and I
what does it mean?
deleted, so I
Yeah.
deleted those.
As I said, you want to do it instead of dumb ones, you know?
Yeah, I don't think-
Is everyone, I think everyone's okay with.
And we
I
took
can't
out
trust
LU
anybody who's doing
1.3.
Appears to be okay.
And then I'll redo
I'd plug-
that
plug.
LU 1.2.
Why was
Thank you.
why was LU 13 in there?
1.3, where's
It
what?
was added
I added that.
in the 1024 iteration. It had never been in any of our subcommittee things, so she's taken it out.
Is it a good ad or not?
No.
Which one,
Why?
LU 1.1?
What's-
LU
what's-
1.3.
1.3.
That's something that wasn't in
Second
any of
bullet
our sub.
anyway. Sort of squares with LU 11. Review and update, and then assess existing regulations, and all it does is effectively implement 1.1.
I don't think that second bullet point was the problem. I think the first
The
bullet point
first one was the
was the problem, that we're not gonna ask residents and developers,
Right.
to get involved in the planning process. So I think that was the major issue. I think,
But that's
bullet
what,
point number 2, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Actually, technically, experts and residents who joined the planning commission would be getting
And not
involved.
only that, we invite the public to every meeting.
yeah, but the coordinate with stakeholders on comprehensive land use. This was,
I don't disagree, we can eliminate the entire section, because
okay.
it's redundant. And
Okay.
it's been redundant with a lot of things
So we're on,
throughout the
All
whole
right. We agree.
document.
Angie, we agree. I love it.
Okay, moving right along.
Transportation.
Transportation.
Traffic mitigation, regional connection, integrated
before
mobility.
we go jump
that's
all the
smart.
way across, so one comment from Jean on 113 was to consider adding, under trails and bikeways, consider adding something about working with others to extend the bike trail so it connects to the trails on Bohicket Road.
That should say Betsy.
On Bohicket Road?
To Betsy, not Bohicket, I meant to say.
I meant to say Betsy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Betsy Kirsten?
Where,
Are you guys
Oh,
all
yeah, there were burnt there, yeah.
Yeah.
on page
They're
113
poor
for
bike
trails
trails.
and
They're poor, but they're
bikeways?
bikeable.
Are you guys okay with adding something in there about connectivity
To get off the island,
to
basically.
get off the island?
well, you can get off the island.
Okay,
At your own,
To
take
see
your
what-
life into your own
To
hands.
see,
I'll add that.
well, you can't, well, we don't own the property.
Right, right. So I'm saying work with others to consider feasibility of extending the trails.
Well, that's in the
Goals.
main road discussion.
Not Betsy Kirsten. It stops at River.
Well, it was a bad idea even there.
Okay, I can do that. And then
It'd be
the other,
cheaper to buy
the other
before
comment
riding
was
their bike
on,
on the main road or car.
the other comment was on page 121, Beachwalker Drive and fuel and parkway improvements. To consider adding something about crosswalks and speed humps, tables on Beachwalker. This will be important. This will
Yes.
be an important safety consideration as traffic. So is everyone okay? I think just adding some information about maybe crosswalks and speed.
So we're talking about traffic. My concern was is we have more people living there, right? Something for crosswalks,
So we have
speed
already one
humps.
speed table.
Right.
So
I don't
maybe,
think it's specific
Could be part of the
on,
study that's going on.
Well, I think the study is mentioned, but I don't think there was anything mentioned specifically about pedestrian safety.
Which study,
The whole thing is decided, is based on
21.
safety.
121.
Which study?
Wait, it was
121.
old page 121, one second.
We have a speed table there, but I think he's just wanting to make reference to the importance of pedestrian
Safety.
safety on Beachwalker Drive.
that was,
It was that closing paragraph on 120, right? The town
Yeah.
remains committed to monitoring traffic patterns, evaluating potential improvements on Beachwalker Drive intersection. Want to add something in there to add about pedestrian safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Sounds
Is
good.
everyone okay?
Ensuring efficient transportation and pedestrian safety is fine. Add the words. Just don't put raised crosswalks in.
It's my backyard.
We're back on to page 126 now?
Yeah,
Hold.
10 minutes.
126, 127, you wanted to add, Jean had put under T1, consider adding a strategy about connecting our greenway to the one on Bohicket Road.
Betsy, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Let's see. Is there a greenway on Bessie across from?
It's more of a sidewalk, wide sidewalk that you can cycle on to get out to the hardware store, to the stand
okay.
and all that.
So add that as a goal.
Where are we at?
On page 127, under objective 1, Jean would like to add something about a strategy about connecting our greenway to the one on Bessie Harrison Parkway.
And now that-
Consider it.
Well, now that the conservatory owns some of those properties, and they plan to have walking trails or whatever, it would make sense for people to be able to get there without
Well,
having.
at least to there, yeah. At least to there. Then you gotta go to side eyes now, too.
That's right, yeah, they've got single property.
I would definitely eliminate objective T2.
T2?
Yeah.
It's duplicative of the earlier study, but the conclusion here is that it's a done deal. And I don't think we're at that point yet.
Which one are you talking about, Andy?
T2 to
T2,
eliminate
the
that.
enhanced transit infrastructure. I'm sorry,
Evaluate
we on
the
page
adoption of
127?
electric vehicle, the steps.
I think what you can do in T2 is highlight just
What you
as
can do is
opposed
delete
to-
it, John.
opposed to just calling out main road corridor. You want to have the main thoroughfares that are not on Kiawah. So if you want to add to main road or subtract it, you're looking at main road, Maybank River,
As a strategy.
as a strategy, like off island, those main,
Again.
advocating for improvements for those main.
Which one, which way?
So under
back to-
T2, what John is saying to add,
About electronic.
No, give back to T1 too. I have no problem.
All right, let me
Oh,
pause
T1
this.
T12.
Yeah, so it wasn't T2, it was T12.
Right.
T1.2.
Andy's talking about T2.
Amy's talking about T2.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So
Down with EV.
We don't know what the study's gonna suggest, and here you got the same thing, evaluate the adoption.
That's lovely.
So am I hearing that everyone wants to eliminate objective T2?
No,
No, okay.
no. I think that's, in 10 years, there are going to be a lot of electric vehicles, whether you
I
like
mean,
it or
maybe you
not.
could
Think
just
so?
say it.
Yes, I do think so.
There will be.
You don't wanna bet on that, do you?
Andy, I was in the automotive
You're buying
business, I know what's going
You're
on.
buying futures?
What's that?
You're
All
buying
right,
futures in
gentlemen.
Ford?
All right, let's move right along. Move right along.
Are we?
So we're going to keep it in, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe you want to add a second strategy because the objective is kind of very broad and strategy is all about EV.
Okay, I'll add a second strategy
We
to
have-
Broad.
We have things about the parkway in later sections, so maybe just, it'll be repetitive, but maybe you could just say something about the parkway there as well.
Okay.
That regional connectivity point that you raised, that was going in T1.
Yes. You could even build it in 1.1 if you want,
What's that?
about the bike path thing. That's what you're talking about, right?
What else to say?
Yeah, put in T1, I have
Yeah.
it to add into T1.
And maybe you
had
could make
also
it a
wanted
little bit
under-
more broad and say bike and pedestrian.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Bike and pedestrian
Yeah.
connectivity.
But no
Horse
e-bikes.
paths, horse paths, bridle paths.
Only if-
So we need an intermission.
Move right along.
Surprised you're not gonna add golf carts.
Against those two.
No EV bikes.
No.
We can have EV cars, but we can't have EV bikes.
He's against everything electric.
No, we need an intermission, guys.
Yeah.
No,
We
no,
don't-
No.
push on, John, push on.
Have
You
one-
guys are getting.
let's go.
5 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right, we're getting,
Let's go to
we are
priority.
so, some of us
priority.
are so ready to be done with this.
Priority investment. Let's go to page 138, 139. How about that?
I don't even want to come.
All right. This is our capital improvements plan section. As you all aware, that every comp plan has a section. What's highlighted, funding opportunities, any things that you've noted.
I just, you kind of have a lot about the marsh, as far as objectives and strategies, but you don't have anything about the beach. And in the narrative, you have a lot about both. So I don't know. It seems like the beach is a big priority in the narrative, and yet we don't have any objective or strategy about the beach.
From an investment standpoint,
Yeah, we could modify and add in, I think it was
I mean,
because
maybe you could just
one of the
add it
objectives.
into objective, so it's,
Yeah.
Both marsh mitigation and beach preservation.
infrastructure and beach.
I'm sorry.
and
So on objective, you said just add something about the beach.
Yeah, like I said, maybe you could combine it into objective PI 5.
Okay, oh, implement marsh.
Just, instead of making it about the marsh, just make it about both the marsh and the beach.
We have marsh in almost every section here, every
Yeah.
objective.
We got more marsh than beach.
It's bigger
Probably
risks.
belongs
right?
better in P14 instead of 5. But either one, I don't.
Any others? All right, so the 11th element, this resiliency, when we first started this process, we had resiliency as a center of how this particular plan would be at its core. And so this element really, I want you guys to make sure that resiliency encompasses that we're really thinking about how Kiawah can become more resilient, not just from the environmental standpoint, but all of our emergency management and facilities, public safety, any things that you have.
So, on page 142, in the second column,
Yep.
so that resiliency can help Kiawah mitigate risk, enhance its existing values, and define a secure path for the island's future. I understand it, but I think when somebody's reading this, they're going to be enhance existing values. Are you talking about was worth, value as in worth, or are we talking about values like honesty?
Intrinsic.
And it's sort of, it wasn't clear to me until you look at the figure or down below. So I think the figure is it sends a very excellent message, but in general, readers aren't gonna maybe pore over the figure that closely. And I don't know how you can, this figure also spans 2 pages, so I don't know how, on a computer screen, how it would actually come across. So like I said, I think the values you're talking about are the things that in the figure, and it's not really clear when you're reading the narrative. It's only clear when you go down and read the figure. And like I said, I know a lot of readers aren't gonna read all that in the figure. So I don't know, like I said, I think the figure is an excellent message, and I just kind
You
of
would
wonder.
want this pulled out in more of a narrative.
Yeah,
But it isn't all of it in the narrative, one way or the other?
no, not at all.
So, can you refer to the, can you refer to the figure, as you're calling it, and say, and risk through, and then, point the reader into that direction, as presented?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I think that
As presented.
the figure actually has a lot of information in it.
Okay. So, mitigate risk as detailed in the thing below.
Yeah, because you normally this appendix would be really kind of weird since it's the only appendix that we will have. So either I can write this as narrative. I know that Joanne had questions with regards to one of these figures, which in order for me to edit this, I would have to.
Yeah, no.
Well,
No, I will
we'll
agree with
still have the 2 management plans as appendix, so like the beach management, marsh management as appendixes to this, because those have been critical to the influence, so we can.
Then I need to add as an appendix, because nowhere in here do we reference it as having an appendix. So if we were gonna, if the idea was that it was gonna be appendix to this, I just need to add that.
So, but why is it just referring or just pointing as detailed below or as detailed within the body?
I have some questions on this chart, though, and you're saying you can't edit the chart.
Well, I can't, I have to get them, because this came to me as a as a JPEG, so I have to go in. I can get them to do it. Yeah, to be able to actually physically go in there and make changes to it.
Yeah,
I would just
because
have-
I didn't-
I reach out to
Is it-
L3P to do
Which
that.
one did you have?
I didn't like develop more robust commercial opportunities that build local businesses. I think we want to have local, on the island itself, I don't think we're looking for more robust commercial opportunities. I just don't think fits in with resiliency. I don't
That
think
would
that's.
include fresh fields? That would include fresh fields? You don't want them out
No,
there?
I do want, no, but I just
I
didn't,
think that the figure is kind of introducing the idea that resiliency is a lot more than just environmental.
yeah.
That it's resiliency across all aspects of the
We
community.
can
Right, and
modify
that's what it
that.
says in the narrative, to ensure the long-term well-being of our cities and towns.
Was that the only one, Joanne, just that first under
Yes.
economy? Okay, that, we can clean up the robust, that.
John, go back to 141, since Ron just raised the question. Can we delete or change in the third paragraph under overview, change climate change to environmental change? In the second paragraph, so we're at least consistent,
Yeah.
without raising all sorts of hackles?
And on 142 in the second paragraph, starts at several of these external forces are stressing Kiawah system. And at that point, you don't know what these is referring to. You then, in the next sentence, explain what these are. Growing development pressures, consistent resident occupation. So those are the external forces that you're listing.
So you can just take these out, just say, just several external forces are stressing Kiawah, then you relate, then you tell them.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, as you read it,
No,
you
agreed.
kind of say, what are these?
Agreed,
And
agreed.
Andy, you want to say ongoing environmental changes instead of
Yeah.
climate changes?
Yeah, I made that
That's fine.
change.
2 minutes over, I'm telling you.
I am so proud of you all. I am so proud. Oh, we got,
Oh, no, we don't do public,
it's a workshop, we don't do public.
we don't do public comment.
Our workshops were,
Yeah.
we had to start
work.
with 3 hours. They were all 3 hours.
We back to page 150?
Yeah, they were.
150.
Later.
Page 150, anything?
Joanne wanted to get rid of the
Right.
Try and find out
law
where I see it
enforcement.
before.
which I-
Yeah.
Where are we? Long-term public safety strategy?
It's a public safety
Objective
now.
R1.
Yeah, on 150.
Don't we have the long-term law enforcement? and other-
Yeah, determine,
Well, it just says public safety strategy.
Long-term public safety is what it
Law
says.
enforcement, public
yeah, she
safety.
changed it
Yeah.
Oh,
to
she
public
did.
safety from, it was law enforcement, and we took that out.
So did they change it in R2.4 as well?
Let's see.
Yep.
2.4.
2.1,
And 3.1.
2.
2.4, yes.
Safe and secure environment.
Public safety.
Yeah, because the biggest public safety thing is the front gate.
All right,
So- R4,
then the town risk assessment.
I just wonder as a bullet point, you should, because you discuss it, or you've mentioned it, so assess utilities and infrastructure as related to their ability to withstand acute events.
Who's assessing it, though? Is it the town, you're just saying?
I'm
we
just
don't
giving
assess
an
their-
example, because you have conduct comprehensive town risk assessment, identify potential hazards, assess vulnerabilities and potential impacts on the community, I mean, that's an awful broad statement.
So for us, it would be, as an example, the bridge.
But you also, in the narrative, talk about doing assessing the utilities' ability to withstand an acute event.
Yeah, I don't know if we're assessing it as opposed with regards to the utilities, have to look and see how we work, if you had a word.
I thought you said it was like
Yeah.
going to be
We
a
don't-
partner project between town and the private entity.
Yeah, it would be with like Berkeley Electric, just, it's not, yeah.
Like I said, I just thought maybe adding a bullet point that gives it a little bit something
Yeah.
specific.
And I'll add something in, I can add something in there about them, maybe it's not a successful partnership or something like that.
I mean, and I'm not even saying just saying the vulnerabilities, impacts to the community, specifically on infrastructure and/or utilities.
So one of the things that I've seen in resiliency situation, or
Like 2.4.
things is that there's a recovery actions, that the resiliency also, you evaluate the most, what's at risk and what's most critical, and then how, and then you have specific recovery actions so that you address them.
So that would be it would be connected to our emergency preparedness.
Okay.
So like any special event,
Okay. Yeah,
recovery is a phase of that.
I know we said somewhere where we talked about the bridge, and you got some people who have we've got a company that's on, that compensated for it.
R2.2, didn't we change the word create to consider? Because we don't want to mandate that we're creating this role until,
We should.
the role is defined, what are the job responsibilities? So I thought we had changed that to consider.
Okay.
So take out create,
As opposed to create.
consider.
Yep.
The only, create is kind of a weak object, it's a weak statement.
Yeah, but consider is,
Better.
consider gives us options. Create says you're going to do it.
Okay, I mean, I would put, I like it the way it is. I think consider is kind of a,
Deliberately, and that's intended.
okay,
But I mean, the narrative says we're going to do it.
yeah.
Well,
Well, why
if town
do
council
you want
wants
to
to do...
hedge, Joanne? Why do you want to hedge?
Because, do we know yet exactly what the role is, what the job...
We know there is a role.
And I mean, as well, so we can say consider, because actually
Here
the
there
town,
isn't yet.
and I think in our sea level rise mitigation that town council adopted, it said create. So,
If the town council can create
right.
it, that's their role.
So if we say consider here, our other document
How about
says
consider
create.
creating? How about considering creating?
So it is.
I can do that.
That's the compromise I want.
Essentially, we're telling council to think about it.
Evaluate the need.
Yeah, evaluate, that's a good way, evaluate the need
Okay, you wanna
for,
put
because
that.
I have no concept of who works in town hall, what their current responsibilities is this something that someone in town hall can do, or two people can split? I have no idea.
So
I don't want to mandate.
The thought pattern is modeled on many jurisdictions now. Because of the complexity of this, they're dedicating someone to be responsible for resiliency, and so it's
Specific skills too. There's unique skills that are involved in it too.
It's not
No, we don't have anyone right now at the town that would be able to do this. So this
I
would
don't
be creation of a new person. And we actually looked at it at the time when the resiliency, with the sea level flood mitigation had it create. We actually looked at Lucas, and so that's how Kika ended up hiring Lucas, and we were going to essentially help pay for it. So we had already kind of went down that road under Mayor Weaver.
But it follows in 2, if you just, on the bullet, just say evaluate the need.
I think what we kind of came down to, evaluate the need, and evaluate the need for a dedicated role.
I do want to, any other comments before I want to open a space for our public comments, and then we'll come back with Commissioner sort of final thoughts. Okay.
Thank God it's over.
Hold on,
It's not quite. It's not quite.
Red zone,
This has been
red zone.
a
That's the
more of a
one that I
listening
had
session
downloaded.
for those who have joined us.
Yeah.
And then anyone who is watching as well. But we offer this moment right now for anyone who wants to share to the Planning Commission members any comments on the document, the process, where we are, anything that there's no decision being made on this being adopted, but this is one phase in the moment. There'll be more opportunities after, formal opportunities to comment, but I do want to extend that right now. So if there's anyone.
Hello, hi, I'm Sherry Gallagher, both as a community member and as a director on KICA. Super excited about the Kiawah Island Alliance. That's going to offer all of us a lot of opportunities to speak with each other face to face and get to know each other more and really cooperate. So, thank you. Great.
Gay Stathis, I just want to say the same thing Sherry just said, the Kiawah Island Alliance, better late than never. I think had this been in existence maybe 10 years ago, we could have avoided all the meetings at the court with the lawsuits and everything. It's going to be a big project to get it to work, to get everybody to the table. Where there's a will, there's a way, and I think we really should go forward and assume we can get it done. It's a great idea, and the timing's perfect, so.
Mark Kamar. I wouldn't want the day to end without thanking each one of you individually and many people probably outside this room for the focus and attention that you've given to this. I've witnessed every comp plan renewal since day one of the town of Kiawah Island. I can say that this has been far more comprehensive in nature. It's obvious that each one of you individually and collectively have made a commitment to go forward with fresh thinking, borrow from the past. We have a pretty good past, but borrow from it, but recognize that we're headed toward a lot of challenges in the future. The document itself, I think, is very informative, as I think one member said. I think it would have been helpful to have the most recent comments available before we had the session. As I understand it, you had an update. Yeah. So being able to sort of keep up with all the iterations, I think, would be very helpful. So I want to make a couple of comments, but I don't want them to diminish my opening remarks, which is overwhelmingly the most important thing I want to communicate. Many of the comments that you went through were ones, a handful of them were ones that I would have mentioned, so I'm not going to go over those. But there's one area in particular that I would like to comment, or at least suggest you reflect on. It's the land use section. And on the first page on 99, where there is the beginning of charting this section, the big idea section, as I understand it, the consideration or the action today was to remove the development capacity. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. I mean, it's being addressed in here, but as it relates to a big idea, I understand. But I have another big idea for you to consider. It's a familiar topic to Joanne and me in particular, which is, I think it would be helpful to update the development standards for the town. There are many development standards which are far outdated. They're products of 70s and 80s that have been carried forward either through borrowing them from the Charleston County, or earlier Charleston County ordinances during the PDD era of the 70s and 80s. I think it would be very helpful to update those. And the reason being is, let me just use one example. The last time I evaluated all the existing multifamily in Kiawah, 70+% of it is non-conforming. That's not healthy to have ordinances that are that far out of date. Even though you addressed aspects of the non-conforming thing in terms of replacement, it's just not, that's not a good indication of ordinance updates. So I would encourage you to consider that as part of a big, I think it's an old idea to keep ordinances updated, but a big idea to update the ordinances. Also in the land use category, on page 100, where there's a conscious attempt to just get our hands around, well, how many units do we have and how many would we have in the future? And this was a really good exercise. I thought the commentary that you all shared with each other of how to bring this not to a precise number, but to a range. There is a big difference between what's possible technically through zoning classification on a piece of land and what's probable. There's a big difference. The last time I did this, by looking at the same data that you have, where I showed possible, but emphasized probable, more probable total count is probably going to be in the 4,900s. It's not going to be in those other areas for two reasons. You take any piece of property on a Kiawah, assign its zoning classification of density to the acreage, and I would challenge you to find one parcel that came anywhere close to that historically. Even though there's always a suggestion that developers maximize things, it's never happened. And I can share all that information with you. So I think as a minimum, I would suggest a column in here of whether you want to call it probable or not, but I think that is the reality. And the reason being is you can take, they're largely in the resort areas, but you can take like some of the royal parcels that have yet to be subdivided. I don't know if those were considered in the numbers, but there's a probable evolution of some of the old royal parcels that were transferred to heirs in the transfer with the Kuwaiti period. The other extreme are the resort properties of what's probable in terms of unit count versus alternative uses which are non-residential in character. So I don't know how that's been accounted for, but I would encourage it, whether you integrate it or not, I think it would be good for you to know what is a more probable range, because the metrics and the impact on all of the collateral support systems would be more aligned with that. Trip generation, service access, and so forth. I think it would be helpful.
So Mark, sorry, probably can't ask a question of your questions and comments, but like which category would that impact most heavily, do you think? The different issues that you brought up versus possible versus probable.
And I'm sorry, could you please state your name
I'm
for the
sorry, I'm
record?
Mary Beth Schmersel. I'm a resident on Turnberry. I've passed Mark when he walks his dog. Yes.
No. Well, it's hard to read up on the screen there, but in that chart on the left there, the assumptions related to Kiawah, I'll pick one as an example.
Thank you.
Okay. Under future residential development projections, the first category is Kiawah Island Golf residential, 420. Well, what would be interesting is to compare and contrast the assumptions that you use for the 420, John. You know, I'm sure that you do them, but it would be interesting to compare and contrast those versus a decision by the resort to, for example, let me give you one minutiae example. The resort has the capability of expanding the Sanctuary Hotel to 175 more rooms. All the public spaces in the Sanctuary Hotel were designed to anticipate growth of that hotel. But they also have a choice of not doing that and doing residential. So how is that, I'm sure you have an answer for this, but how is that accounted for? Number one, they unlikely wouldn't expand it to 175 rooms. It would probably be 100 or so, plus or minus 100. It would leave additional land for them to consider residential development. That would be just one aspect. And that would probably be at the one end of the extreme of a big number versus my reflection on royal parcels, which is probably less than 15, sort of thing. And you just, it's like business modeling is what it is, and I'm just encouraging that aspect because it does have implications. I think that was it. Again, I don't want to sit down, much less leave the room, without once again echoing that this is really good work. And I can tell you want it to be better. I understand that. And I think you're trying very hard to anticipate a future that we all are sort of unclear about, but there's you're trying to narrow the spectrum with the world that you're looking at, that it's not like this, but it might be more like that. And it won't be a near miss, but it'll be much closer to what is possible. We are a product of a community that in 2 years will be the 50th anniversary of the opening of the inn and the release of Sparrow Pond cottages and beach townhouses. That was the first residential release on this island. A lot of the overwhelming amount of development that occurred on Kiawah was during the Kuwaiti period. It hasn't been the latter period. It was by far, if you look at the numbers, the release of property and sale and development was far more intense during the Kuwaiti period, because that was the condo world, if you remember. I mean, that was overwhelming on that. Well, the section that you deal with in terms of how do we anticipate the aging of our community and the rebirth of other areas, that is a harder challenge than new development. I mean, take the community that's 25 miles away, is 350 years old. It's still evolving. Our community doesn't stop when the last lot is built on. It just starts. And it's like a relay race for all of us. So I'll shut up. I've gone too far. But I really appreciate this as a resident, and I look forward to it as a professional in terms of what you end up with.
Where do you want to go next, Lance?
Sure, we'll ping pong. Lance Spencer, Inlet Cove, Sunlit Bend. Mark made me think of a couple of things that we've been talking about recently, but modernizing the ordinances, I think, is really important to strap on next. I'm sure you already have that in your sites, but that's really important. The development and redevelopment, Mark couldn't have been more right. The redevelopment's going to be the hard part as we revisit all that, making sure everything's conforming. We probably have about, Mark, you know this number better than me, probably about 20% opportunity to create new dwelling units on the island still. It doesn't seem like that, but we do. Also, I think we're going to see a huge acceleration in the next several years of permanent residents versus part-time residents. So I think we need to figure out how to account for that. So I see a lot of good things in the plan. Like Mark said, thank you very much for all your hard work putting it together. I'll echo also the KIA. It's a great idea. We all need to be working together on shared governance for the same community. So thank you, and just some added thoughts.
Lance, a question, if I might. What, in your projection of future residents, what age group are you looking at?
It's a good question. I'm not sure I am looking at particular age groups. I imagine it's probably going to be more people working from home, just thinking off the top of my head. I think the pandemic taught people that you can work somewhere different than where your job is. So I think we're seeing that on our street, that there are people that still are working. They're now full-time. I think we'll see more of that happening. But I think that also retirees at various ages, late 50s up into, older ages.
But it all fits within the existing land, if you will, that's available, and the existing housing that's available. Okay.
Yeah, is that kind of your thinking?
So, yeah, I agree with you on the updating of ordinances and whatever, but we got to be careful. When you go to conforming and the ordinance changes, now you have non-conforming.
That's for sure.
What do you end up doing? You end up like grandfathering the house as it is,
right.
or do you require everybody to rebuild?
Well, and we're seeing that in zoning variance requests right now, where the houses no way are conforming to anymore. And the BZA's at least acknowledged those. I'm not for variances for the most part, but when your house is already out of compliance and you want to stay within the existing footprint, yeah, that should be kinds of things people can do.
Well, don't forget, it was always in compliance when it was built.
The day it was built, it had to have been, yeah. Thank you.
Amanda Mole. I just have two questions, and but I would like to reiterate that certainly y'all have done a great job, and I know a lot of effort's gone into this. So just two brief questions that I noticed as I was going through this in advance of the session, and they weren't necessarily answered during the conversation, so I thought I would just bring them up. One is under the housing section 7, where you have objective H2, which references creating design guidelines. So I was just curious, is that intended to be in addition to designing with nature, or is it in support of designing with nature? Because even once the developer is no longer in control or transitions, you know, the ARB to KICA, as is currently contemplated, they're still in play. So was wondering whether you were trying to create a parallel path or the idea of it being more supportive along the lines of this other group that we're talking about. So that was my question.
Yep.
You want to answer?
I can take a stab at it. There was a lot of discussion around it because there was trying to anticipate where the current version of the ARB and that whole transition and that dialogue being fused in with this plan and the timing. The idea was to try to broaden it to say that there will always be design guidelines attached to Kiawah, and so the format may be modified, but we know that design guidelines would still be incorporated, whether or not it takes the form of the town, its own independent. That is not contemplated in this framework.
It's really more in support of the concept of there being design guidelines.
And the consistency and understanding. I mean, if you have a different terminology, which I also had the question about, why change it now? Use what's there, and that's what if we change it ultimately, we change the name, but.
The biggest thing under H2 was the idea that how do we take, and it goes back to something Mark mentioned regarding redevelopment, how do we ensure redevelopment is captured with design standards? And so.
Yeah, H2 is about
redevelopment, so that's really.
But that is currently captured in designing with nature, so I think that, I mean, I'm sort of in line with where Andy was going. I mean, we have a great process now, and it's gotten Kiawah to where it is today, and I think can continue to get it through the next decade. So I was just, wanting to understand what the sort of thought process was behind H2. And then the other is under 11, resiliency, back to that JPEG that Stephanie was saying she has to go back to the source to reference. So there are the two references to architecture, and it's a little hard to see on the screen there, so I was looking at it on my phone, but in the resiliency lens, there's reference to something called beautiful low country motifs, and I'm just not sure what that means, and whether that's the kind of thing you actually want embedded in the JPEG in your comprehensive plan. So just something to think about.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think it's an idea, not something specific.
Sure.
I apologize, but I did remember one.
Get Columbo.
Two more.
One more question.
The one area that you have suggested some awareness of, which is really healthy, is I guess I'm sharing decades of being involved in things like this, where the real pressure points are not advanced in new development or redevelopment. It's where neighborhoods go bad. And America has this penchant for, if you've grown up in certain neighborhoods or in cities, that have evolved over 200 years or so, you've seen evidence of this, where there's great neighborhoods and then over time it starts to deteriorate. Our pressure points are going to be these excessively large homes that have been built in certain areas, which are beautiful and appropriate. But the pressures of how those are maintained in an environment like we have, and the whole notion of handing down to heirs or selling or whatever, who would have thought that the mansions in Newport would be timeshare? Right?
Oh, yeah.
Or broken down into duplexes or whatever. I'm using an exaggeration, but you can go city after city after city in America. Great neighborhoods have pressure time periods. We can't anticipate when that happens because of the nature of ownership. We have this extra X factor of the higher percentage of property owners being non-residents, which adds other adds other pressure points to the nature of keeping neighborhoods up. But I don't know how something like that can be anticipated, and hopefully it'll never happen. But America and community development, the history pattern is pretty familiar to all of us. So I really won't say anything more.
No, I just think it's, it's been a long time to look at the result. Look at it there. Everybody's worked hard, everybody's stayed with this. I even heard some criticism from an outside person a couple months ago, which brushed off with a grain of salt. Everybody's done a great job, and Larry, Joanne, and Ron especially, with what they've done with the subcommittee. So we appreciate everybody's help. You've done a wonderful job, and thanks to the community for staying involved. Thank you for our two candidates for the town council to share your afternoon with us. We appreciate that. And I think this thing is getting towards the finish line, and we appreciate everyone, what you've done to make it happen.
One thing I'd just like to say, having gone through this, the more I went along, the more I kept saying to myself, I wish everyone on this island would read this.
Yes.
Because there's so much information. And so one of the things we need to really think about, how do we do that? How do we publicize? It's done, please read it. Put it online, just get people to do it. And really and truly, I think it's an excellent document. But if people don't read it, it's a problem.
Certainly.
John, what is the time frame going forward? And what are your plans to get the public input?
So we have what we heard as takeaways for today. We want to produce a clean document from these comments that we've heard today. And the objective is to put that in a public forum workshop. Where we aren't doing the same activity, but generally displaying, I think, the goals and objectives to the community so they understand this document. And then it would be ready for you guys for recommendation. There's not a small time in between that recommendation period where we can schedule that. That can happen fairly quickly because there wasn't what I would see a substantial amount of changes, but we want to make sure that we get them accurately and you guys bless them before we schedule that public
You say
session.
workshop for public exposure. Would you consider a charade to do it, just put up the 9 or the 11 pages and have people go through and then take those comments in a period of time, 2-minute period, and then have them available for us at the next meeting, whenever that is? And then we can finalize the document and vote on it.
That's one option. We can put it out for 2 weeks where it's commented on and presented back for recommendation. So we can go with that. And
Why not?
is there any
I mean,
objection?
if your goal is to get it done before the end of the year, which I hope it is, and if it's not, then I don't know.
We'll have recommendation in our December meeting. I don't think that we would have recommendation at our November meeting. So the goal is to have the recommendation at our December meeting. So between now and then, we would have an opportunity for the public to provide their comments.
But rather than, my suggestion would be not to have a workshop for public comments, but to have the charade so they can give the comments at their leisure in a facility like this. Just put them up on a wall, let them look at it. There can be members of the task force, the subcommittee or whatever, here to explain things, if that's what you want. And get those comments to us for the next meeting in a way that you can determine if, or better yet, have the subcommittee go through them all and recommend changes that are required as a result of the comments, if there are any. And if there aren't any, then they shouldn't have been there in the first place.
So our December meeting will be ready for recommendation.
That would give us the time frame, yes.
And before that December meeting is when we'll advertise this to the public to allow them to submit comments accordingly.
Don't expect it for December meeting if we don't have a meeting at some time before the December meeting to go through the public comments and consider if changes are required.
You're asking for a separate meeting to allow you guys to respond to those comments before you?
I'd like to give the public an opportunity to make comments.
No, what we would do is summarize those comments to you. So staff would summarize those
But
comments.
somebody's got to decide whether those comments affect change. If they don't affect change, that's fine. But we got to go through it to determine if we need to make changes.
Yeah, we'll provide that to you guys, and you guys can make that determination if there's something substantive. I'll make that call and say, these are substantive, we think that these should.
Before the next meeting.
Before that next meeting, yeah.
Fair enough.
Otherwise, you're never going to get through by the end of the year. And Bill and I are going to be very disappointed.
We'll keep your name still on the sheet.
No. All right, ready to go?
All right, somebody's cleared. Thank you all.
Guys, if you guys have any other comments that I missed or didn't, just shoot me an email, okay?
That's what they are. I saw that up there too, I thought that's kind of like.
Keep them all over.
Until it's over.
Oh, okay. And then I'll.
I gotta get a.
See your ranking.
I know.